Agni parthene despina agrande Theotokie infia nymphefte parthene tiranasa panendros et epoche infia
Greetings everyone, this is Light of Tabor. I'm your host, Mark Ratelle, and today we have a very, very unique episode. We're going to be interviewing my wife, the mother of my children, pro-life advocate, and Orthodox Christian, Mayda Marina Ratelle. Thank you so much for being here today with us, Mayda.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so my wife has a very unique testimony. It's kind of part of my testimony, obviously, because she's my wife and we've been through this journey together. A lot of this has included both of us, and especially the birth of our most recent daughter. She is 6 now, she'll be turning 7 soon, but this is a very big part of our testimony and how we came to God, how we came to Christ, how we came to Christianity, and in the early points we were going through Protestantism and all kinds of things. We'll get into all these different aspects of our journey today, and I'm just really excited for her to share her journey with you guys because it's a really powerful testimony, and it's going to add a lot of insight to how I got to where I'm at as well. So I'm really excited for it. We're just going to jump right in with the first question. So where we usually start off with everybody is how they were raised, their childhood. My wife has a very unique childhood as an adopted child. And I just wanted to ask you, what was that like for you growing up, being adopted into a family? And what was the faith like in that household? If there was any faith, any Christianity or anything of that sort, what did that look like? And what did your childhood look like coming up? What was it like for you?
Yeah, so I was adopted at the age of 3. Before that, I don't really have many memories about, where I came from. I don't really have any information about where I came from. I just know that I was adopted at the age of 3. Before that, I know that I was in foster care. I don't know exactly when I was put up for adoption. I don't know what happened to my family, my birth family. I don't know any of that. I am interested in finding out, though. It's just been a battle, I think a spiritual battle for me to kind of open myself up to, I guess, a can of worms when I'm trying to look for my other birth family, because being adopted has its own issues, and then you add other issues on top of that, it can put you in despair or make you stronger. So I think now that I'm Orthodox, I am ready to go forward with trying to find out my past and exactly maybe my birth family, or trying to see what I could find out about myself. So that's, I think, where we're at now. Before, I would say I was not ready. I feel like I would fall into despair. There's a lot of issues growing up when you're adopted, and going through and trying to heal myself from a lot of the pain, which a lot of people kind of wonder what kind of pain you have when you're adopted, right? They think it's like a miracle that you're adopted, and they want to think of all the light and the positive sides of being adopted. And although there is positivity, and I'm grateful, I am very, very grateful. Let me just say that. I'm very grateful that I was adopted. But with that, there comes baggage, and I'm trying to work through that. I would say now I've kind of hidden in the back, and now I'm ready to come forward and kind of talk about it and, heal from it finally. And I feel like part of healing from it is talking about it. So here I am today on the show. I'm going to talk to you about my life story. So yeah, I was adopted at the age of 3. Growing up, I would say I had a pretty unique childhood growing up. It wasn't all flowers and candy and just happiness. There was a lot of drama, a lot of family dysfunctional things that were happening, and being young and not knowing really or comprehending what was going on, and not really being able to talk about it was very hard for me as a child. Me and my mom had a really difficult relationship growing up. We did not give each other pretty much any affection growing up. And although at the age of 3, coming into an adopted place and going into a new family, you can only imagine how scared a child is going into a family and they don't really understand what's going on. And they're just all of a sudden with a new family, staying there. Of course, kids are going to have boundaries, and I was one of those kids. I was one of those kids that, you know, held up really strong boundaries, did not want to really open myself up to love, I guess. And I think my mom had a real big problem with that. She wanted the perfect adopted child who would give her so much love and attention and come give her hugs and kisses, and I didn't really know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that, and she also did not know how to give that to me. So I think there was kind of a dynamic there that was kind of really bad. My dad, on the other hand, he was very loving towards me, but I think as things got bad with me and my mom, it kind of became a pick your side type deal. And of course him, which I don't have any issues with him about that, but am I hurt a little bit? Yes, but he chose his wife over protecting me in certain cases, and when you're vulnerable, you need an important father figure to kind of speak up, especially when things are dysfunctional. So there was a lot of drama in our household. My dad had a drinking problem. My mom blamed me for his drinking problem because I was adopted. She said that it caused them a lot of stress, and he started drinking really bad, and things got really bad between our whole family. My dad then attempted to stop drinking when my sister was born, and I was about 7 years old. I have a younger sister and brother. My sister was born, and it kind of changed the dynamic a little bit.
And sorry to interrupt, but your parents initially, they didn't think they could have biological children, correct? Yeah,
so that's the reason why I was adopted, actually. Right. Because I think it happened pretty quickly. My mom actually had her tubes tied because they didn't want children. That's what happened. And then my dad almost died. And I think that changed their perception on having kids. He was literally on his deathbed, and I was being adopted. So there was a lot of drama going on, a lot of things happening that caused a lot of things to happen that were very kind of one right after the other, and I think it just caused a lot of issues growing up. But he did survive, and then I think when he survived, they talked about getting their tubes untied. So then my mom went to go get the procedure done to get her tubes untied, and that's how I had my brother and my sister. Yeah, so things kind of changed after my brother and my sister were born. And I would say for the better for a little bit, because they were very happy. But of course, things are temporary when you're really not working on yourself. And I would have to say too that they were Catholic. We grew up very Catholic. I grew up going to catechism class. Right when I was adopted, I think officially they baptized me. So I was in
the Roman Catholic Church.
Yeah, I was. I think I was 4 years old. So we were very Catholic. We went to church every Sundays, but there was a hidden You know, there's a hidden thing behind closed doors that people don't really realize what's going on. But yeah, I was really Catholic. I wanted to actually be a nun growing up. I kind of knew that there was drama in my family, and I kind of saw me becoming a nun as a way to escape and to kind of find peace, because I was very religious as a child. I love church. I love going to church. I love singing. I was a singer. I used to sing at the top of my lungs during church, you know, to the hymns that they were singing, and I was very I loved God, you know, and I would say I was in the 5th grade and things kind of changed a little bit. I was I was molested at the church that I've been attending my whole life, by the gardener that used to work for the church. And that kind of changed my perception on things. It changed the way that I trusted in authority figures. It changed the way I trusted in men. It changed the way I trusted in even God. Now, I wouldn't say I totally like didn't believe in God, but I think I was very angry, and I think I was very upset with the fact that I was thinking, how could this happen at the church? I was molested at the church, you know. How could this happen? How could he allow this sacred place and for this man to groom me? Because I was being groomed for, I would say, a while before he actually pushed me up against the wall behind the church and molested me. So I kept that a secret my whole life, but things changed. I started kind of drifting away from going to church and really being in tune with singing the hymns, and I stopped all that. I stopped wearing skirts. I started wearing 3XLL shirts. You know, my dad was a really big guy. I would wear his t-shirts. I started wearing really baggy jeans. I started thinking it was my fault. I think I was hitting a breaking point at that point, because I was thinking that my whole life has been negative, and this kind of threw me over the edge. And when something like that throws you over the edge, you think it's your fault. Finally, you accept that maybe you're the one that causes all this pain for everybody, and you're the one that, you know, that does this. So I hurt myself by I guess making myself ugly, and I gained a lot of weight. I was very depressed. Like, if you were to see pictures of me in high school, they're not what I look like now. But that was a really rough time in my life. I think that was the moment where things kind of changed. And mind you, I was dealing with some abuse at home. I was dealing with, you know, I would say a narcissistic mother who didn't think that anything was her fault. She wanted to think that I was the cause of all her issues, of her and her husband's issues. And my dad started working out of town, and I think it was to get away, honestly, from the family, because there was just so much family drama. Every day I would be walking on eggshells, every single day. And I don't think people really comprehend the way I grew up that way. There's still a lot of things that people don't know. And I don't think I'm ready to talk about that yet. And I don't really want to talk about it, because it just brings back horrible, horrible things that should not happen to a child, or as a mother, you should not do. And I have some bitterness still to that. And I think I'm trying to get over it. It's still very hard for me, you know, to pray for her and to kind of understand where she came from, but I know that she was abused really bad as well as a child. I just personally can't see myself abusing children the way, you know, I was brought up, so I just don't understand that aspect. But I am trying to get over that. But yeah, so I would say during my whole childhood has been a very negative childhood. But I've been trying to work through it, get over it, and notice that this stuff has made me stronger. And sometimes, and that's why I love Orthodoxy so much, is because it's all about the struggle. It's all about struggling and then coming from that struggle stronger and more humble. And that's what I'm trying to do, because before, I don't think I got over it, and I was anger, and still to this time, I still have anger issues. They come every once in a while, but I'm trying to learn humility through struggle, and that's something that the Orthodox faith teaches you, and I think that a lot of people can benefit from that. So yeah, that was my life growing up.
Do you have any positive memories from your childhood that you can recall? Yeah,
so a couple of my positive memories that I have are with my dad. Like I said, me and my dad were actually really close when I grew up. I love my dad. I just think that he, you know, there was just, you know, sometimes you need to break away, and I think he needed to get away. I think, you know, and that's okay. You know, I don't hate him for that. I love him, and I know that he showed me love even when my mom didn't. But one of my favorite memories, one was four-wheel driving. He used to four-wheel drive with me in mountains and rivers, and he used to own a Bronco, so him and my uncles would go in four-wheel drive everywhere. Mountains, dunes, rivers, rocks, and I would just be bouncing in the back of the seat just with my seatbelt off, not even giving a care in the world. That was like one of my favorite memories, and we used to do that all the time. Second memory I would say was going to TJ with my dad and with my uncles, and he would bike ride. So he would do this Rosarito bike ride for miles and miles and miles and miles, and then at the end we'd all go to eat lobsters in Rosarito. So that was like one of my all-time favorite memories of growing up with them. So
awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I also wanted to talk about your experience with our daughter, with the birth of Maya. If you want to get into and what that was like.
Well, do you want to talk about our relationship for a little bit?
We can get into that, transition into that section of the story, basically.
So on the positive aspects of things, because, you know, had a really rough life, as you know, and was kind of running amok. I was kind of crazy back in the day. I actually graduated from high school. After I graduated from high school, I felt like that was like, because my mom was very academic. She was a teacher. She was a teacher. She wanted me to excel, A's and B's only, and we had a battle with that. Let me tell you about that. Yeah, we did have a battle with that. That was my one thing that I think that I could battle her with, that she couldn't win, and I think that was like my way of winning our arguments in a way, was because I used to do things like not do my homework, and she couldn't really force me to. And, you know, I think that was my way of kind of like getting back to her for a lot of the things that was happening.
Yeah.
I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't really bad, but I was stubborn, and if I didn't want to do my homework, I wouldn't do my homework. And I was smart, but I didn't want to do my homework. And I think that stems also from some of the childhood trauma that I dealt with my mom being a teacher, and some of the things she used to do to me while I was doing my homework when I was in preschool, kindergarten, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so after high school I left. I was 18. I said, I'm out of here. I tried to do college. And I went to college, and I started noticing I was never going to get away from my mom if I attended college, because she was always going to be around paying for whatever, paying for the bill. So I would always have to talk to her and I kind of went through the thing of, I need to get away. I'm going to get away. So I went to college for a little bit, and then I ran away. I was already over 18, so I don't think I technically ran away. I just left. But I left and I went with a boyfriend, and that got really bad. He was abusive, and I was stuck in that relationship for 5 years. No, 4 years. 4 years. I would say I was stuck in that relationship. I did not necessarily want to be in the relationship, but I felt like I had nowhere to go. I only knew my parents, and my parents didn't want me back. And so I kind of felt stuck. And during that time, I got addicted to drugs. I never did drugs before. I never drank, never smoked weed, never did anything like that. So I met him and went straight to meth. So did that for 2 years straight, got addicted to it for 2 years straight, ended up going to jail because my ex was making fake IDs, and I was not a part, well, I was a part of it. I didn't make them, but we would do things with the IDs, like give them to people. Anyways, you don't want to know. Anyways, I was doing some bad, questionable stuff, and we got caught for it. So, I got caught. I went to jail for 45 days. I do have a felony. And when I went to jail, I got out, and he got out, and we were both together for a little bit. And then I think a month later, he beat me to the point where I called the cops. The neighbor called the cops on him. He tried to break my phone, and it became a whole mess. So when that happened, neighbor called the cops. He went to jail, and I felt like that was the time for me to get away. So I left everything, like everything. I think just the clothes on my back, and I went to my parents' house, I think for 2 weeks. And I said, I need to get out of here because I'm not going to stay with my parents, because it was already starting being there for a week. And he will probably tell you about that because he actually experienced some of it. So I decided to leave again within 2 weeks, and I went into and that's when I started renting rooms from people. And I started slowly getting my life back on track. But the one thing that I was doing, I wasn't doing drugs anymore because I didn't really like doing meth necessarily. I just was caught up in really bad stuff and with really bad people, and I was naive, and I just listened to what other people said. And so I'm not saying I put the blame all on them, because I have some blame too. But I stopped doing meth when I moved in with my parents, immediately stopped, didn't feel the need to ever go back, didn't go back ever. Started going with roommates, staying with roommates, and started getting my life back together. But the only thing that was wrong was I started having a drinking problem. And that's where my drinking problem kind of came in. And it first started with going out. I started having friends that used to go clubbing and dancing, and me growing up, I love to dance. And so I found that as a release, and I started going out almost every day, getting drunk, going to work drunk, you know, just the typical alcoholic behavior. But I had like 5 jobs, and I was pretty much holding it down just besides my drinking and doing, you know, damaging my body. But yeah, I had like 5 jobs at the time, and I was just drinking and going out and working.
Pardon me real quick. I just wanted to specify, but your liver condition you were actually born with.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So I did have a liver condition, which I didn't really think about because my parents didn't tell me it was a big deal. I think they kind of brushed it away. So I didn't really think it was a big deal until something happened. But I was born with hepatitis C. My birth mom, from what my adoptive mom says, now I don't know if this is true or not true because my adopted mom liked to say a lot of hurtful things to me, so I don't know if this part is true or not, but she says that my mom was basically a drug addict, prostitute, crazy lady, and she had multiple kids, and she got hepatitis C, and she passed it to me. So I found out actually at 18 when I tried to donate blood at my high school that they sent me a certified letter in the mail saying that I had hepatitis C. I showed it to my mom because I was in high school. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Showed it to my mom and she just looks at it and she's like, "Oh, okay." And that was the end of it. So I didn't really
know how to deal with that or process.
Yeah, it didn't really process anything until my ex and me were caught across the border doing some illegal stuff, of course. And the Border Patrol agents, this was the first time it came back up. The Border Patrol agents put a mask over my face because she was asking if I had any.
What kind of mask is this? Not just like a Koofy mask. We're not talking that.
Oh, it was a Koofy mask. Yeah,
was it? Okay.
It was a Koofy mask.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of those.
One of those, right?
Blue masks. Those blue medical masks.
Okay.
Or whatever. Yeah. So she goes and do you have any medical conditions? And they start reading this stuff out, and I see hepatitis C on there, and I'm like, oh, I have that because I know I have it. I just don't know too much about it.
Right.
And she straight up is so mean to me. She's like, "You need this mask on you." She put this mask on me, and she's like, "Because I don't want you spitting on me, and I don't want to get hepatitis C." And I was like so confused because I was
very cooperative.
I was very cooperative, and then all of a sudden things changed, and I was like, "Wait a minute," So when I got home, I looked it up and I found out that it was kind of like HIV spread.
There's like a craziness around it,
yeah,
hysteria around it, right?
Yeah, there's like this hysteria around it, and people like think that just because you spit on them, like you're gonna get hepatitis C. That's what she thought. So that's the second time I kind of thought, I was like, well, maybe I should look into this. Didn't really think anything of it until after I went to the doctor and I did some study because they told me it was serious, and they were like, it's shocked that I didn't even look into it. And I was like, well, I didn't really know to look into it. But yeah, so I didn't really know about, I was drinking. I didn't know about the liver condition, and I was drinking excessively, like really bad. But I think it kind of helped that I didn't start drinking until I was like 24 or 25. Like I never took one sip of alcohol, not one, till I was like 25, I think 25. Yeah, 25. So, fast forward, I'm running amok. I start realizing that I'm becoming, well, I kind of know in the back of my head that I'm becoming an alcoholic. And then somebody pops up. This man pops up out of nowhere, and I kind of was in an argument with one of my roommates at the time, and he's like, I remember I was at work at the movie theater where I used to work, talking on the phone at the movie theater, on the phone. I know, that's bad, but I was talking on the phone at the movie theater to him, and he's like, you know, you've been running kind of crazy around, like, just because I would tell him, like, all the crazy stuff I would be doing. He's like, he's like, why don't you just come stay with me? And I'm like, nope. And he's like, no, you could just come stay with me. You know, you don't, we started meeting around 2010, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 2010 was when he started talking to me on Facebook. Yeah. He messaged me. Oh, no, it was MySpace.
MySpace is way back. Yeah.
It was MySpace. He messaged me on MySpace. Mm-hmm. And at first, because I didn't date anybody after my ex. I didn't want anything to do with no men. Like, I had a problem with men. Like, I had a problem with authority, and I had a problem with men. Like, definitely. And so, any guy that would try to hit on me, any guy that would try to like even talk to me, I'd give him like the side shoulder, like get away from me. I want nothing to do with you. And then he pops up on my MySpace, and he just kept writing funny stuff. And I won't go into the details about the funny stuff because it's a little questionable. But he got my attention. He got my attention, and I was like, this is kind of crazy that I'm like into this, but it's kind of funny at the same time. And mind you, his if you go back to his MySpace pictures,
don't do that. Don't do it. Don't. Just leave that in its own little space.
There's a picture with him in front of a bathroom mirror.
Oh God.
With his shirt off.
Lord have mercy
with his
on me.
wet hair in front of him like this, and I was like, who's that man?
Oh man.
So anyways, we met in 2010, MySpace. And yeah, within I think a week. Was it like even a week?
Yeah, it was like within the first week, like not even a full week. Yeah.
Week. He was like, you should just come live with me. And I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. He said, well, why don't you just come spend the night? And I'm like, but did you ask your, because he was telling me that him and his mom live together. And I was very like, I'm like, no, you have to ask your mom. You have to like talk to your mom. You can't just make this decision. Like, she's the one that's probably paying all the bill. He's like, no, don't worry about it. She doesn't even care. She doesn't even care. Like, just come over. And I'm like, but you have to talk to her. And he's like, trust me, when you meet her, she won't care. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll try. So I was like, okay. So in my head, I was thinking, I'm going to give this like a week max of living with him. And then if things are not going to go good, like if I have one red flag, I'm leaving. One red flag, I'm leaving. And I went there, and it was just the end. I never left. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It was crazy because, yeah, I met his mom, and his mom was totally fine with it. She was like, oh, yeah, you can stay as long as you want. She was a little bit old. She's a little bit older than most moms, so it was kind of cute because she would bring over these, like, BLT sandwiches. And she would make these BLT sandwiches for him. It was just cute. But she'd be like, you want one, honey? Do you want me to make you one, honey?
Very old-fashioned.
She's very old-fashioned. And I think I found it kind of, he was like my knight in shining armor. Like, you, like, saved me from, like, totally becoming, I think, like, just a crazy person in despair. Because honestly, I wasn't dealing with things the right way. And when you're drinking like that, I think you push a lot of things aside and you use your drinking to cope with it. And I think that's what I was doing. And I kind of, when I moved in with him, I didn't have to work. So I stopped working my 5 jobs, because I had like 5. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a job for like, I don't know, was it like a year maybe?
Not too long.
It wasn't too long.
Yeah, you haven't went without
work. Yeah, I haven't
for
really.
very long.
I don't like going without a job.
Yeah.
So I probably like 3 months, and then I was like, okay, I'm itching for a job. I have to do something. So then I got a job, and then in 2014, because we met in 2010, 2014, our son Malachi,
our first child was born, Malachi.
And
Malachi Rocky Ratelle
is a blessing.
Yeah, he is. Straight angel from God.
He's like an angel from God. He is like...
Which Malachi means messenger from God. Yeah. And he's the seal of the prophets, the last book of the Old Testament. And I wasn't super religious when I came up with that name, but I always had a Roman Catholic upbringing, and I knew I was going to name my son Malachi. I didn't really know why.
Oh, he was for sure about it.
Yeah.
He said... Even before I had a kid,
I knew I was going to
before we had a kid, he's like, my first son's name is going to be Malachi. And I was all, whoa, you're very... But I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I love the name. I love the name, so I didn't have a problem with it. Mm-hmm. But he was very like, he's like, my son's name is going to be Malachi. Malachi's going to be my first son's name.
And I was very adamant about that.
I was like, okay. Oh my gosh, all right.
Ready for
He was like ready. He's always ready to like fight me. That's the one thing is like...
Lord have mercy.
When you get into me and Mark's relationship, I think like we have a very unique relationship because we both grew up with like not only trauma, but we both grew up like kind of like the black sheep, and not only the black sheep, but we also grew up having to defend ourselves from the world our whole lives. Nobody defended us our whole life. So we are a little bit more on the rougher side, and we're trying to work on that.
Trying to work on our grace and mercy.
We both
Lord,
I'm a Latina too, so you know.
So you get that feisty, that fiery, spicy.
I do have that
spicy aspect,
and I'm trying to calm that down. But it's been hard. It's been hard, but it's a process. I'm trying.
So then when we had Malachi, that's when we moved out and got our own place. So then we moved out. That's when we got our own place, and it was just me and her. So where was our first place? I don't remember. Do you remember where our first place was that we got together? Was that the? Pardon me, the Spring Valley.
Passed away.
Okay, your mom passed away.
Yeah, because he was 3 months old when he passed away. So I was working at.
Were you?
I was already at Tops.
Were you at Tops? Okay,
yeah,
you're at Tops. So then we moved to that area by Tops. Was that the first spot? Was that the first spot we moved in together? Because I know actually Spring Valley, my mother was still staying with us. Then we moved into our own spot. Yeah, but that was
our spot.
Yeah, that was our spot.
We moved into that spot.
Oh yeah,
we were on the lease because
And then we were helping her at that time.
We started helping her.
Yeah, she was needing help at that time. Even that was even back then when Malachi was first born.
Well, she's older. Right now, she's 82.
She's always been. So she had me in her late 40s, just for like context. Okay, so she's always. So
she's pretty. She's a little older, and
she's always kind of needed a little bit of help along.
And I would say she's a little bit more on the help. Like she needs a lot of help.
But
because she did have an accident too.
Yeah, she had an accident way back when she was pregnant with me. I was in her stomach. She broke both of her legs, like shattered her legs and her arm, and she has metal in her legs and her arm because of that. Still to this day. And she was supposed to never be able to walk again, but she was able to walk, and I was born fine, and it's a whole like miraculous story. So that's part of her.
That's actually the story you haven't
that's a whole other aspect of my testimony that I haven't even gotten into. Actually, there's a lot of layers to this. We're writing books and stuff, so you know, I'm just trying to give it to you in little pieces so I don't overwhelm you guys too much. You know, like so.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Like we moved out. Where was that spot? The first spot we got.
We got Spring Valley.
Spring Valley. That was and then she was there with us, and then after that. We went by Top Salon at one point. I know we were in like North Park area by Top Salon because that's where you were working. That was one of our spots too.
No, yeah, because remember my mom died and my dad died a year later, and we went to after. Should we talk about that?
What? Oh yeah, we lived in a homeless facility.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
My mom passed away when my.
This is after we had our own place for a little.
Yeah, my mom passed away when my son was 3 months old. And of liver cancer. She had breast cancer and it moved to her liver. So she died of liver cancer. And when that happened, my father asked me to move in. Well, asked us. Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, we weren't even struggling really like that. Like we were on our own. We had our own spot. We were doing fine.
Yeah, my dad asked us to
move in to help out, right?
To help with my sister mostly because she was having a very rough time with just.
She had a child too.
Yeah, she had a child and she was dealing with a breakup and she was just having a really rough time with my mom's death. Like she was all over the place, almost in despair, drinking and like vomiting and just not being there for her kids. So. It kind of got to the point where we had to take over taking care of the child, and one day we got kicked out because of a situation with my sister and the little child, and we were just trying to protect the child. And I don't really want to go into details about what happened, but when that happened, my dad said that because he defended me, because my brother, they were putting me in a corner.
They cornered us, and I was holding my son Malachi at the time,
and when they did that, I kind of...
No, I snapped.
He snapped. And then I snapped after that. And then he...
I didn't hit anyone. I just kind of yelled.
No,
I just yelled. I think I just yelled, "Shut up!" I just yelled, "Shut up!" once.
It was a loud yell, and then after that, I snapped and I said some bad things. So, but then he said that you need to leave. So we had like a week to leave, and we didn't have. And then we left, and we went into a homeless. We stayed in hotels because that's the only thing. And then we ran out of money because hotels were so expensive. and I just couldn't find a place. And we were both working. It wasn't like living in California and San Diego, even back then. Just the two of us was kind of hard having a kid.
Well, plus it was just kind of spur of the moment. We didn't have time to figure everything out or save up. It was just like a whole situation that we just kind of got. We kind of got dragged into.
And we got rid of all our. We got rid of
a lot of things that were in my family for many years. I got rid of like a lot of things I regret getting rid of during that time. I'm still a little upset about this one table that was in my family for so long, and we were holding it in the garage, and there was a dispute. And it was all BS in the end too, and it never ended up being used for what it was supposed to be used for. I'm still mad about that. Lord have mercy on me.
But what I'm saying is that
sorry, that's my own thing.
What I'm saying is sometimes families can be difficult to deal with. Okay, that's
especially like parents-in-law, family-in-law.
Well, especially when there's a death involved, I think the emotions and everything just get. If you don't know how to handle or regulate your emotions, it's going to come out a different way. And I think my family was already very dysfunctional to begin with. And I think adding my mom's death was like this huge blow to everybody. Because my mom was, even though I would have to say she did provide the motherly aspects, even though she wasn't loving towards me, if that makes sense. Like,
it's kind of a contradiction there, right?
She taught me how to cook. I'm a really good cook.
Right.
I know how to do laundry. I know how to clean. I know how to do stuff like cleaning. Like, I know how to do things like that, but she just never showed me any affection.
Right.
And
there you go.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, is that she was good at providing like the passing down of like the traditions and things like that. Like I can cook from scratch. I really love cooking. I just haven't gotten into it for a while, which I'm trying to get more into it. It's just been hectic going from being sick, but yeah.
So we were at the part of the story where you're working at Top Salon.
Oh, and,
actually, we moved back in with your parents. We moved out. We went to it, and then we went to a homeless facility.
So we were at the homeless facility. Now, I was keeping we were both keeping the whole homeless thing a secret.
Yeah, because we were ashamed. It's shameful. That's why right now she's like, do you want to talk about it? I'm like, let's just, we made it through that now, so it's like, it's part of our story. Might as well embrace it at this point.
Yeah, so we were homeless, maybe for, I think, a year and a half. No, actually just a year, because then my dad passed away. And then
we got ourselves out of that situation. We finally saved up enough money to...
Well, no, my dad passed away, and then the money that he had in his account got transferred to us, and I was able to get out of the situation.
That definitely helped a lot, yeah.
And then we moved into a place in North Park.
Exactly.
And that's where...
And you're still
I was working at Top Salon. Yeah, I was still working at Top Salon. We were in North Park, and
which is a sketchy place to be a Christian. I don't even know if we were really Christian yet, but man, we still were like a little starting to get sketched out by certain things. We were just starting to get open.
Well, I think you were. I wasn't.
Yeah, I was definitely sketched out.
I was in
because she had a friend that was like...
Well, I had two friends. I had one transgender friend, and then I had lots of gay friends.
Well, she worked at a salon in North Park, so...
even that was before.
And the Gay Pride Parade was right down the street from... or that was a different one.
I was very open, with like just being friends with like everybody. I liked gay guys back then.
Yeah,
back then.
Right.
Okay, honestly, like I liked gay guys back then because I think the fact I didn't get along with many girls, and I think the gay guys kind of filled that aspect of the girls hanging out with girls aspect. So I worked at the salon, and that's when my drinking kind of stepped up again, I would say. Right? Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because I was okay. We were fine. And then I started drinking again. So what I would do is, because I had an owner, my manager, or the owner of the salon, used to depend on me a lot, almost too much for some things. And I would be at the salon from like 9 a.m., 8:45 to like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night. And then being there all day, I started drinking. I started smoking a lot of weed. And and I started doing just, well, what I would do was I would just go out after getting off work, and then I wouldn't come home till like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and he would be with Malachi. Like, he was probably with Malachi more than I was, I would have to say, at that time, because I was just working and then going out. And how my work handled it was okay for me to, because my owner would do it too. So
yeah, it was like a party culture.
Yeah, it was party culture.
Like
so I would show up there. I would, then at lunchtime, we would all go right around the corner to the bar, and we would have drinks at the bar, and then I'd come back to work. And then work till like 9, 10 o'clock. And then I'd go to the sushi place around the corner with my girlfriends and get super drunk there because I was already drinking. And then I'm not eating, and then I'm drinking again. And then I'd be hanging out with my friends until I don't know when, and then just come home. And the thing is, like, it made it very safe for me because it was like within blocks of us living together. And like, it was very easy for me to like, just go like 2 minutes one way and then 2 minutes another way, then back home 2 minutes. Like, there was so many in North Park, there's so many bars, so many places to eat that are up late at night that it makes it super easy for you just to go out, especially if you're living in North Park, and just go have a drink and then come home and then just be, and it makes it okay. And it just became like the normal to me. And I, you know, that's a really part of my life where I have trouble with, because I already had a son and I felt like I missed part of his childhood doing that. So it kind of hurts me that I was like that, especially with my child, because I am not the type of person that wants to be known to be neglectful, even though in a way I was. I was providing money, and things like that, and paying a lot of stuff, but I wasn't there emotionally, or, you know. I think even one time, wasn't I passed out and you were at work and I had to pick you up, and you had to have somebody pick you up because I passed out?
Maybe. Yeah, I can't really recall that off the top of my head. But
Danny had to pick you up.
Okay, yeah. I think I do remember that.
Yeah. Like, it got really bad. So, then I didn't know at the time, but I think I was working there for a while. Then I ended up pregnant, and I didn't know at the time. And then my emotions were going crazy, and I snapped at the owner. Like, I snapped at him because I was just I think I was overexhausted. And he was like demanding.
He was a rude person too.
Yeah, he was demanding a lot from me. And I think I was just getting tired, and I was hormonal.
They were taking advantage of you there.
And I snapped like really bad, and he was, and then I quit. Like, right on the spot, I quit.
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time that I was pregnant, but I think that's why I snapped so bad. Like, it was really bad. I snapped. I yelled at him in front of like everybody in the salon. So I kind of feel bad about that, but kind of not at the same time, because he kind of deserved it. But everything happens for a reason, you know. Sorry. That's just who I was in the past. And like I said, I'm trying to fix myself so that I don't act like that anymore. But that's what happened. And at that point, I don't think it was a bad thing, because he was also accusing me of things that I wasn't doing. And it just, I think he was gossiping, and it just made things a lot worse. So I quit on the spot. And then I think a few weeks later, or a month later, I found out that I was pregnant or something like that with my daughter. And yeah, that's another story. So
yeah, do you want to get into that with what that was like with the birth of Maya?
Yeah, because it all like kind of goes in line. So yeah, I quit the salon. A couple weeks later, a month later, I find out I'm pregnant. And I start noticing that my brain is going, is like, I'm losing it a little bit. I don't really know how to explain this part, but I know that my brain was acting up and I couldn't explain things. Like, I was doing stupid things. Like, I was,
But that's connected to your liver condition.
yeah, that's what
right?
I'm trying to say. Is
Yeah.
like, I was pregnant, but I didn't know at the time. But the pregnancy was bringing on all these liver side effects too.
Yeah, it was
That I didn't know what was happening, and I was losing a bunch of weight. So that's one sign. I was losing, like, I lost a ridiculous. I used to be like 210 pounds, and I lost a ridiculous amount of weight fast. But I was pregnant, which is weird. So I didn't think I was pregnant, and then my brain was going. I was having brain fog. I was doing things like shopping, going to the store and getting like carts, you know, shopping, and then checking out, and then leaving my shopping cart with my purse and my wallet there at the store, and walking to my car and going into my car, and then realizing that I'm at the store and realizing that, wait a minute, I already went shopping. What is going on? So when I go back, so I was doing weird things like that, making weird financial decisions that shouldn't have happened. Like I was doing weird. Like, I thought I did stuff, and then I wasn't doing stuff, and then there was just a lot. It's called, well, what I had was hepatic encephalopathy, and that's part of a liver condition. But I was also pregnant at the time, and I didn't know it. So I'm getting all these signs, and I'm like, okay, well, let me go to the doctor because I don't feel good. My brain's going. I don't know what's going on. I feel out of it. I need to go to the doctor to see if my liver's acting up, which it probably was because I was drinking a lot.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, great, here we go. Like, this is like, they're going to tell me like I'm dying or something, right? So I go in there, and she's asking me these questions, and she's like, did you take a pregnancy test? And I'm like, no, I didn't take a pregnancy test because I've been losing weight. I haven't been gaining weight.
Right.
And she's like, well, we got to take a pregnancy test just to get that out of the way, because brain fog and, you know, just there's some symptoms here that kind of sound like you're pregnant. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I did the pregnancy test. That pregnancy test came out negative.
Yeah.
When that came out negative, I think at the time one of my side effects at the time, which I forgot, was vomiting blood.
Oh yeah.
So that was a big sign. That's why I started going to the doctor, because I was like, okay, something is up here. This is really serious. So that's what brought me to the hospital, was the vomiting blood. Because I probably wouldn't have gone, honestly. I'm too tough to, like, I don't like going to the doctor. I don't like dealing with doctors. I like toughing things out. I don't know. But, so I vomited blood, and I'm like, okay, this is not a good sign. So she's like, okay, well, since you're vomiting blood, we need to figure out what's going on. You're not pregnant, so let's do a tube down your throat, an endoscopy, to see why you're vomiting blood. And so I was like, okay, we'll do that. So they scheduled that. And when they scheduled that, they had to, by procedure, do a blood pregnancy test. When they did that blood pregnancy test, it came back positive.
So the first pregnancy test was wrong. Yeah.
And when that came back positive, I was already on the operating table. I was already hooked up, and they were gonna do it, but they have to wait for the test. And they were just, I was laying down, getting ready to do the endoscopy, and they took the test, and they come to me, and they were like, did you know that you were pregnant? And I said, no. They did a pee test, and it came out negative. And she said, no, honey, you're pregnant. So, when that happened, the doctor came in, and he told me, he said, look, he said, we need to figure out why you're vomiting blood, because that's a very big concern. So I can't give you the sedation that I was going to give you because you're pregnant and it can harm the baby. But since this is very serious, he's I suggest, we can do the endoscopy without anesthesia. So you will be fully awake and you'll be able to feel everything. And I'm just like, I was like, well, like, it kind of like threw me off because I'm like, well, then why do they need sedation if it's like, if they can do it, you know, the other way while you're alive? And he was like, it's because people can't really handle it. Right. It's really hard to like do it without sedation. He's all, but in third world countries, they do it. So that's what I was like, okay, well, if third world countries can do it, I can do it. Like, I think I'm pretty tough. I can handle it. And he's like, all right. So they have 2 people holding me down. There's one person right here and one person, they bring 2 people to hold me down. I'm like, why are they bringing people in? And she's like, I'm just going to be here to like make sure you're okay. And I'm just going to talk to you while they're like doing it. And let me tell you, I didn't understand how hard that was going to be doing it without sedation. And that was like really bad.
Yeah. So you don't recommend that for anybody, right?
No.
The opposite.
Now, if you want to feel like you're dying from not like breathing,
Chinese water torture. If you want to experience Chinese water torture, yeah, then totally.
Like you feel like this huge thing in your mouth, and you can't breathe through your nose or through your thing. And then not only that, but you have the thick mucus that's like here that kind of like coats everything. Oh, it like comes up. And you like choking at the same time.
Yeah, it sounds like Chinese water torture.
And so I was there. I was literally, I'm there, I'm shaking. And they're like holding me down. Man. And I'm over there coughing. They're like, just breathe through your nose. And I'm like trying to breathe. But the boogers, the stuff was going in my nose. And I couldn't. It's all, so I'm all like trying to like breathe like that. And it's all like coming out of my nose. And then it lasted, I don't know how long it lasted. But it felt like forever. It probably wasn't long. It probably was only like 2 minutes or something like that. But yeah, so they did that, and then they shoved me into the waiting room, and then they went to go get Mark, because Mark was wondering why it was really fast, right? You were like, that was quick. And then I walk in, and I'm all smiling. Like, I have this smile on my face, and he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, and he's like, are you pregnant? And I looked, and I was like, yeah.
I think I knew. I kind of knew.
You knew. Yeah. I think because you knew the signs, too. I think it's just instinctual.
Yeah.
But for me, I was just so sick, I didn't know what was happening to my body. I for sure thought I wasn't pregnant. So yeah, then what happened after that? I'm trying to think.
Well, you found out you were pregnant, and then they told you.
Okay, yeah, so then after that, then after that, I had to go to the liver specialist.
Right.
Because they were like, well, you're vomiting blood, this is a liver issue.
Right.
So I went to the liver specialist, and bless her heart, her name is, what's her name? Jaya Kumar.
Yes.
Dr. Jaya Kumar. She was at UCSD. She literally, her and Dr. Amani, I want to say. Dr. Amani. They saved my lives. But they were also for abortion, which is where my pro-life story comes in, I think. Yeah. So I find out I'm pregnant, and I go to the hepatologist, and she's talking to me, and she says basically that she says my liver is failing, and that going through a pregnancy is going to be super hard, and that she believes that if I go through the pregnancy, that I would only basically have about a 10% chance of making it through the pregnancy. And then she told me that my daughter is probably, because I'm so sick, the likelihood of her making it is going to be 0. And when you hear something like that, I think I was in shock. I think I was in shock. And my views about abortion before that, even when she was saying that, was if the baby, or if she is maybe just like an egg form, then maybe I will consider aborting her. So, but in the back of my head, I knew that I didn't want to make a decision about anything before thinking anything through. I didn't want to make it a mistake. I didn't want to make a decision that was irrational. I wanted to go home immediately, and I wanted to talk to Mark. And I felt like because he wasn't there, it was his mother-in-law, my mother-in-law that was there, and she was with me when she told me that. And so I told her, I said, I understand, but I don't think I can make a decision right now. And she said, that's fine. I just need to let you know that your life is on the line. And your daughter's life is probably not going to make it. So you can always try again for a baby. You know, if you get a liver transplant or, you know, but for now, I think we should talk about a medical abortion. And so I went home, and I think I talked to Mark about it, and immediately he said no. Immediately, he was like, no, we can't do that. And I think I was kind of I was caught off guard. I think I was caught off guard. I think for a second I felt like it was selfish of him to say that, because my life was on the line at that point. And just the fact that he was so adamant about saying no to me right when he heard it, he said no. And I was thinking more like, wait, we need to talk about this. Like, maybe we can have another baby later on. It depends on how far along she is. But I think deep down inside, I knew the answer. I knew. I think women do know. And I think
intuitively, right?
I think they know they're not supposed to do it. Because I was there. And I was still kind of pro-choice at the time when this was happening. And I was kind of thrown off by the fact that he was very firm and said no. And I was kind of like, I didn't like it, because it was kind of like, to me, I kind of looked at it like, you're not thinking about me. Yeah, you're not thinking about me. And I went through that. So I understand. I understand where girls feel that, where they feel that they're not being thought of, but you are. You have to push through it. You know, that's the devil trying to get in your head and tell you that, like, was trying to tell me I don't have support from my husband. And he's been the greatest support more than anybody ever, you know. And sometimes you don't want to hear the truth. Sometimes you want to hear the sweet side of things, you know. We all want to hear the sweet side. We all want to be happy. We all want to, like, not think about death, not think about, you know, the bad things. And sometimes in reality, you have to look at the bad things. You have to confront the bad things. If you don't confront it, it's going to make it worse. So yeah, I was kind of hurt a little bit, honestly. And so I went to go talk to some of the people that I was, my coworkers at the salon. And I started realizing the more I talked to them, the more self-centered it got, the more just the wording that they would use, like making it think that I was the selfish one by saying things like, you already have a son and you have a husband, you need to just get rid of it because you don't know if you're going to make it, and you have to be here for your son and for your husband. That was one thing.
That's crazy how they flip it to be selfish. To like, it's so like, yeah. That's so crazy. And
then another thing was because we came out of homelessness.
Yeah.
That was another thing that they were like, well, right. You can't even financially afford it, so why are you going to put yourself through that? You just need to think about your kid that you have right now. And that hurt a lot, honestly.
Yeah, because it was true. There's some truth there, too.
Because there is truth there. I mean, you don't think I'm battling that in my head already? Yeah. Like, that's not what I was looking for. When somebody comes to you and confides in you in something so serious that has to do with death and killing somebody, it's shocking what these people say to you to twist it.
Yeah, exactly. They twist
to make you the selfish one.
For wanting to keep your child.
For wanting to keep your child.
And ultimately possibly sacrificing your own life.
Yeah.
For the possibility, the small possibility of keeping your child alive. It's a very self-sacrificial decision to make.
And I started realizing everything was so, they were calling the baby like it, and it's just, you should just get rid of it. Yeah, you should just get rid of it. You need to get rid of it. Didn't you just come out of homelessness? Like what are you thinking? Like, of course you just need to focus on yourself and your kid that you have now. And when I started hearing that everybody that I confided in during that time pushed abortion so much, and it was very easy for them. It wasn't a hard thing for them to. That was the first thing that came out of their mouth. Yeah. It was like an automatic thing.
Kind of like how I automatically said no.
Yeah, and it kind of made me think, wait a minute, like, why, like, I want to think about this.
Yeah.
And you're over here just, like,
exactly.
saying no. Like, just get rid of it. And when girls come up to you about abortion and stuff like that, and you're really, sometimes they're not looking for answers. Sometimes they're not looking for you to have the answer. Yeah. Like to say, well, you just need to get rid of it, or you need to keep it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they really aren't looking for that answer. Sometimes they're telling you, help me. Like, console me. Like, I really needed to be consoled at the time because I was dealing with a lot. Like imagine, put yourself in my shoes. You have the ability to kill a baby, to make yourself live. Like, do you realize the mental, how that can affect somebody mentally? Like you can just kill somebody and you'll live. Like, if you have any morals at all, that should affect you. That should really make you think twice about what you're doing, you know. And I don't ever want to kill anything. I don't ever want to harm anybody. That's not what I wanted to do. So when I started realizing that all my friends, like every single one of them, 100%, every single one of them, except for my husband and my mother-in-law, were saying to get rid of her. And I had my ultrasound appointment. So I'm dealing with all this mental stuff on top of my hepatic encephalopathy, which puts you already in a very fragile state mentally. Like, what happens during that time is the toxins that your liver usually clears out are going to your brain. So the toxins are affecting your brain. So you're doing stupid things. Like, it can get as bad as people thinking that the toilet is in their kitchen and they go and pee and they have hallucinations. Like, that's how bad my brain was. Having hallucinations, thinking that you're doing things you're not doing, like thinking I'm somewhere where I'm not, thinking I did something and I didn't do it, or thinking that I didn't do something and I did do it. Like, that's what my brain was doing. And then on top of that, I'm having all these mental issues with people just telling me to kill somebody.
Your own child.
My own child. It put me in this despair. I got suicidal. But before that, I had the ultrasound appointment. And the ultrasound appointment was probably the most beautiful thing in the world. I went and I knew that the lady that was taking my, that was doing the ultrasound, I knew she was just assuming it was going to be like a little egg or something. Like, I thought it was going to be like a little tiny, like, developed egg, or I thought I was barely pregnant. I was like, okay, I'm probably like a month, if that.
Because you had a fluid buildup in your stomach at the time, right?
So I thought I was like a month, if that. So, but then, she put it down, and when she put it down right on my belly, I see like her spine, her curved spine. And I look at Mark, and then I see the head, and then I see the feet, and then I see the arms, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, she's like a fully developed baby. Like, we're not talking about barely developed. We're talking about she has the head, the eyes, the arms, the feet. She had everything. She had the spine all curved. She was moving. And immediately she left. The lady left, and she went to go get the doctor, I think. And then I think that was my decision right there.
How far along were you at the time they revealed when you had that? How many months pregnant were you?
I think I was 20 weeks.
20 weeks, right?
20 weeks.
So 5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 20 weeks pregnant, and the doctor came in, and I made the decision right then and there. I said, I can't do it. Can't get rid of her. I can't get rid of it.
I remember they were pushing for abortion.
Mm-hmm. They were not happy.
Yeah, and they weren't happy about it.
So the next step was telling the liver specialist.
They were pushing hard for abortion too.
Yeah, the next step was telling the liver specialist, the hepatologist, that I was planning on keeping the baby. And that was when I broke down and I cried, I think, for the first time. Because I'm not a crier. I don't like to cry. I think, it's just something I don't like to do a lot. But when I told her, I broke down and I said, I can't get rid of her. I can't do it. And she looked at me and she said, she kind of gave me the look like, are you sure? And then she kind of went, okay, well, I'm going to be here with you and we're going to fight together. And she said that. And I said, okay. She says, we're doing this. And I said, we're doing this. And that was the end of it. And she said, well, it's going to require a lot of work from you. And you're not going to want to do it because your liver is failing. You're going to have to come to a lot of appointments. You're going to have to deal with a lot of issues. Your liver's failing, so we're going to have to manage that. you know, and that's a lot. And then we're going to have to talk to NICU specialists. And we had some lady fly down from Texas. I remember she flew down from Texas. She was a NICU specialist.
Yeah.
And they flew her down to like talk to us and give us the guidelines on everything. And that I think that conversation lasted like 3 hours and it was just like a 3-hour conversation of what can go wrong.
Yeah.
And what the process was if things go wrong. So, and what happens in like certain things that premature babies deal with, like certain common things that they deal with.
Exactly.
So it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with. And then, yeah, so I decided to keep the baby. So now it was just, and then the other thing that she said was, she told me, she's like, the most important thing for you to do is to keep the baby in your belly as long as you can. So be careful, take care of yourself, and make sure that you try to keep her in there, because keeping her in your belly is going to be the safest, best,
to let her develop as long as she can,
the best
and have
way
the least amount
to do it. Yeah. So I agreed to that. And then that was the whole process of me going to like doctor's appointments, I think every other day.
Yeah, it was a lot of
I was going to like doctor's appointments every other day.
Yep.
I think, or else I would have probably been hospitalized, but I was going in and out of doctor's office every other day, monitoring the baby. It got to the point where I accumulated 25 pounds of ascites fluid. Right. And that's, ascites fluid is the fluid that happens when your liver fails. You get this fluid that kind of looks stomach, like, right? It kind of looks like, so I was really pregnant at the time. I was like 5.5 months pregnant at the time, and then my stomach just blew up.
Even more so.
Even more, because I had that. When that happened, I think it pushed the baby down and forced it to have premature contractions. So that was the start of my premature labor.
Right.
And then in between them too, I also was vomiting blood.
Yeah,
so I also had to get like 12 or I think 7 or 12 bands in at one time. Yeah,
somewhere around there.
So with the bands in the esophagus, they tighten the varices. They put these bands and then it stops the bleeding. So they did that, and I think at one time I had like 12 in them in my esophagus at one time, and that was really tough to deal with when I was pregnant. I would say that was really hard.
It affects the way you swallow and eat.
I could barely swallow. I could barely
uncomfortable.
Well, even then I was only eating. So my diet when I was pregnant consists of Jamaica, which I 100% Jamaica. I think saved my life. Like the tea, Jamaica. It's like a tea, yeah. The hibiscus tea. Mm-hmm. Like, drink that every day. I'm telling you guys, like, that stuff, I believe, like, helped me. And now my daughter's, like, obsessed with Jamaica. Like, she drinks it like crazy. Mm-hmm. You know. And the other thing that I would eat is bean and rice burritos. That's the only thing I can handle. So that was it. And it was only like this, like, literally, like this much beans and like that much rice, just like a little bit, and that's all I could eat. So yeah, I was really struggling during that time, and that was a really big battle, and I think that that made us a lot stronger going through that.
Yeah,
I think that
how let's go into going into labor and giving birth to Maya, if you're ready to go into that. Let's go into that.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I go into preterm labor and I try to stay home. I think I was in preterm labor, I think, for a couple days because I couldn't barely move.
Yeah.
And I had to sleep sitting up. I couldn't lay down. I had to sleep sitting up because I would choke.
Yeah.
Remember, I had those choking and I would choke.
It was crazy.
I couldn't breathe and I would like be gasping for air,
gasping,
like for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I got to the point where I had to...
Because that fluid buildup.
Yeah. I had to sit up sleeping. So I would sit up sleeping.
You had to prop yourself up to a certain point because you couldn't lay it down. It would just, go up.
It was really bad. So then I did that, but then I went to preterm labor. I kind of was in there for, I think I had preterm labor for a day, probably a day and a half. And she was moving fine until she stopped. Her moves, or like, she had really hard kicks. Like, her kicks were ridiculously, and that's another reason why I didn't want to, like, abort her, because her kicks were like, bam. Like, she was telling me she was, like, alive. And so her kicks, though, when I started going to preterm labor, started feeling more like waves. They stopped. They were just like movements, kind of like this. So, and I knew something was wrong. I was like, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem like her. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, I think Mark was here with the baby by himself. And I just said to him, I said, I have to go. And he's like, well, I have the baby. Remember? And I was like, well, I'll just drive. And I was so tough, guys. I did not want an ambulance to come get me.
Right.
I drove myself in labor to UCSD while he stayed here with my son till we figured that whole thing out. But I had to go to the hospital. I said, I'm done. Like, I have to go. Something's happening. So I go into labor, and then things happened pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, things started moving real quick.
You came to the hospital then.
Yes.
And then after Nana came, because she wasn't living with us, she had to come to the house.
Yeah. And then we all were just taking, like...
Yeah, we had to, like, switch the house, like...
Her taking care of
her coming, and then he was able to come.
Too.
So then he was able to show up, and then after that, we were sleeping. We were completely asleep, weren't we? And then she comes running in. The surgeon comes, like, she literally comes running in. She's, like, running and panicking, and she's saying, we need to get the baby out now. Your heart rate is dropping. Like, your heart rate, like, you're, like, dying right now. And she's like, we're going to get you in about an hour or something like that. I was like, oh, okay, like an hour. So I thought I had time to, like, get up and get situated. And, like, within, like, 5 minutes, they come running in and pushing me out. Yeah. And it just happened that quickly. Mm-hmm. And you weren't allowed in because I was completely under. So he wasn't even allowed in the
So we had to say, like, our last goodbyes kind of spur of the moment. And it wasn't supposed to be. We were supposed to have a few more hours. Yeah. It was caught us totally off guard.
Yeah, they, like, just ran in and took me.
Because it was an emergency.
And you took one picture, but you deleted it because it was so bad.
It didn't come out good, and it was just bad energy. Bad. The energy, we were freaking out. And I was just trying to take one last picture because I didn't know if I was going to see my wife again.
Yeah.
So, then you went into...
I went in there, and there's so much going on the operating. Like, let me tell you, there was probably about 25, 30 people in the operating room. Because not only do I have the obstetricians, but I have the liver team. So they're ready to intervene if I'm happen to, like, pass, go into something. And the obstetricians can focus, or the NICU team can focus. Well, I had the NICU team, the obstetricians, and then I had so that was like 30 people.
Right.
It was a lot of people. And I remember just being there and it being so loud with the metal clanking in there. And I remember somebody saying, no, it's going to be, like, hectic in here. We're just trying to get ready. And they had somebody, like, here to kind of calm me down and stuff like that. And, they put me under, and the last thing that I said before they put me under was that I was going to make it out. They said, I'm going to make it up. I'm going to wake up. And because I was really scared about not waking up.
Right. I think I should probably go into what was going on with me at that time.
Yeah.
Before you come out. Mm-hmm. Because during this whole time, I'm freaking losing my mind, dude. I'm, like, losing my mind, obviously. Like, I don't know if I'm going to see my wife again. The mother of my children, I'm thinking about, like, how am I going to be a single dad to Malachi? Like, I'm like, this is going to be horrible. I'm going to be the worst. I don't know. I was freaking out. I was losing. I was like, how am I going to do this without my wife? Trying to visualize that, and it just didn't look good to me at all. Just, like, preparing myself for the worst possibility, And during that time, I'm in the waiting room. They're like, go out to this waiting room. I'm like, I don't even want to be here. There's a bunch of, like, weird folks out there at the hospital. I don't know. Everybody's dealing with their own drama and stuff going on. A lot of energy. And I get out of the waiting room and I go back up to the room we were in, the hospital room. And I start sitting there. There's no one there. I'm by myself. And I kind of have this moment where I break down and I'm, like, calling out to Jesus. And I'm like, it's kind of like a last resort thing. I wasn't really Christian at the time even. I was just, I was totally into like New Age and yoga, and I was totally lost in that still at that point. I don't even think we were attending a Protestant church, like nothing. You know, I had my Roman Catholic background, but at this point in my life, I'm straight up into New Age. I don't know. But all of a sudden, in this moment, when everything like went, you know, to the point where I don't know, I'm facing death, you know, possible death of my wife, everything's kind of just falling apart. I'm like, I turned to Christ in this moment, and I felt his presence. I didn't see him. I didn't see Christ, but I felt him in that hospital room with me, and I felt this feeling of just knowing he put in my heart, spoke to my heart in a way. It was like the Holy Spirit speaking to my heart, letting me know everything was going to be okay. Everything was going to be fine, and this kind of grace just like almost flowed over me and let me know, and I had no worries. All of a sudden, I just knew everything was going to be okay, and it was really weird, but it was beautiful, because it was weird for me at the time because I wasn't Christian, you know, so it was like shell-shocking. It was just this, you know, I called out to Christ in desperation, like a last resort, Hail Mary, literally. And then all of a sudden, I feel this presence of Christ, of something I've never experienced, and I feel this grace flowing over me. I know everything's going to be okay. And yeah, that was a very powerful moment in my own conversion, coming back to Christ and coming to Christianity. And I'll pass it back over to Mayda, because she was on the operating table at that time. They were pulling out Maya, our daughter.
Oh yeah. They operated on me. She was born. I read the notes on, you know, how she was born, and they said that she was like very floppy and unresponsive.
Right.
She didn't really cry at all. But she was 2 pounds 4 ounces. Very, very tiny. She was born December 21st, 2017. And she is alive and thriving now. But yeah, at the time she was 2 pounds 4 ounces. She needed a breathing tube and then a feeding tube as well. I think those are her main complications, which is with every pretty much NICU, their lungs are undeveloped, and then they have a problem with the eating, because that's not how they usually eat.
Right.
So, when that happened, then I immediately started leaking fluid, the ascites fluid, started coming out from my belly, from the incision. So it was 25 pounds. They had to actually attach a wound vac to the opening of my C-section, and they had to wear that for quite a while after the hospital to get all the fluid out. But it ended up being like 25 pounds of fluid on top of the fluid and the stuff from the baby. Like, it was a lot. Yeah. And it was really rough. And I was going to liver failure at that time. So they approved me for the liver transplant list. And I was just fighting for my life in the hospital. But the thing about that whole concept of that is, I woke up very quickly from the anesthesiologist, or from the anesthesia. And the next day I forced myself to get up and forced myself to go and see my daughter. So even though I was leaking everywhere, it was beneficial for me to struggle a little bit and get up and get going, because I honestly felt like if I just stayed in the hospital bed, it would have done me really bad. But yeah, I was up there visiting Maya in the NICU every single day. I think I just missed one day because I wasn't feeling good, and I just needed that time. But I called, and I was like, and they were like, honey, you don't even need to call, like, you're a little excessive. Didn't you just have surgery? Like, aren't you dealing with like liver failure right now? And I'm like, yeah, but I just want to make sure, you know, she's okay. Yeah. You know, and they're like, she's fine, you can rest, da da da. So yeah, it was pretty rough dealing with coming back from that, but miraculously, by the grace of God.
And during that time, Malachi couldn't visit.
Oh yeah.
Malachi wasn't able to visit inside the hospital.
So
That
I was
another...
gone for Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital, and during that time, he wasn't allowed in the hospital.
Yeah.
So he wasn't able to, and that was really rough on me because
really rough for all of us. Yeah.
I needed to see my son, and
Mm-hmm.
I begged. So one of the nurses snuck him in on Christmas Day for a few minutes, for like 10 minutes, and then he had to leave. But they snuck him in, and I was able to see my son on Christmas Day for a few minutes, and I think that helped. But I was in the hospital, I think, until the end of January, from December, which wasn't long, because I recovered pretty quickly. I went into liver failure, and I just, by the grace of God, I started just getting better. Like, I remember looking at myself in the hospital bathroom with the mirror and looking at myself, and I looked really bad. Like, I looked really bad. I had, my
on the verge of
face was super pale.
Yeah.
I had blood, like crusted lips. I don't know, probably from the blood from just, I don't know. But I had crusted bloody lips.
Yeah.
And I was super pale, sunken in. I just remember looking at myself and like praying to God and just saying, like, please help me get through this. I know you're here, like, with me. I just need to get better and get back home. So my whole thing was get better, get home, get better, get home, get better, get home. And I kept having that in my head. Get better, get home, get better, get home. And then it got to the point where I was ready to come home. And I felt like I was being tricked for like a whole week because they would tell me, oh, you're coming. They made the mistake of telling me I was going to go home. And then it took like a whole week for me to come home after that. And that put me in this very depressed state.
Yeah.
Because I was just ready at the time. But yeah, that's pretty much it with my daughter. And when that happened, I see the beauty now. I see the beauty in birth and in the struggle of being able to struggle and the beauty that comes after the struggle. I mean, look what happened. I was on my deathbed and I struggled, and now I have my daughter. She's a healthy 6-year-old, and she's like a little fighter. She wants to be alive. She's a blessing, you know. And
she's so full of life.
She's so full of life. Every single morning, she's so full of life. Her eyes are, you know, she just looks at me with these big, beautiful brown eyes. Just like, you know, almost like, thank you for giving me the gift of life. Yeah, I feel it from her, you know. She I don't know if I really told, she probably knows the story by now because I've said it multiple times. Like, he's talked about it a lot. I haven't really talked about it because it's very personal to me, and you know, it just took a while for me to talk about it. But yeah, that's my story about my daughter. So after that, I became very pro-life. I became very, like, the doctors don't really know. And that's the reality of the situation. Like, the doctors can try, and mind you, they saved my life.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, but they don't know all the answers.
Plus, there's a financial incentive for these medical facilities to push abortion.
Yeah.
There's a big money market for the body parts of infants.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as dark as that may be,
so people are going to push it. And it's just about us women being stronger than that, and noticing the beauty and what comes in
being in the image of God.
Yeah, and having a family and not getting your children aborted, because you can have struggles. You can be homeless. You can be a drug addict. You can be raped. You can be on your deathbed. You can be... What other excuses do they have? I think I've said pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
And still, having a baby can change your life for the better. It's not going to make it worse unless you make it worse. You choose to make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
The kids don't make it worse.
They'll give you the motivation
to make it worse.
actually
They actually,
make it right.
yes, they give you the motivation to change and
the purpose
to
your
look
life.
at the world in a different perspective, in a different way that we should be looking at things. You know, we have to be less selfish with ourselves. We have to be less selfish when we have kids. And the reality is, sorry women, but you made that mistake. And I'm not talking about the rape victims. I'm not talking about them. But you made the mistake of doing a deed that causes a pregnancy.
Right.
And unless you're not ready to keep...
to deal with the responsibilities that come with
Yeah,
that decision.
There should be no excuse, honestly. There's no excuse. And there's people, like I said, that have been a product of rape, that have been a product of drug addicts, that have been a product of homelessness, and they come out with the most beautiful souls. And they're, not only do they have the most beautiful souls, but they're also strong, and they can fight for what's right because they've been through it.
Right.
And I believe that it can also help change the mom's perspective on things, you know, and how she looks at the world. So yeah, I'm very much pro-life. And we don't go off and we don't show pictures of dead babies. I'm not that type. I'm not that type of pro-life. I'm not that type of pro-life. The type of pro-life person that I would say that I am is I like to be more humble with things. I like to, because I've been there and I know things can hurt you.
Yeah.
I know, I've been there. I've been in the situation where I've almost done it, you know, because of certain situations, and it's not right regardless. So
yeah. So
let these babies change your lives for the better. That's all I'm saying. Because they change your lives for the better, and then you'd go around, you're like, what did I ever do? What did I do before my life?
Right, before having kids, yeah.
You know? But yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing. Even if you make mistakes, you know, like, I know every woman makes mistakes, but just don't make another one by killing the baby. Please.
Right, yeah.
Please don't make another one by killing the baby. Let you learn from that mistake and let it become a beautiful thing. You don't have, unless you make it a negative thing.
Right.
The babies are innocent, you know, and I love children and their innocence. They can change a cold-hearted person. Like my son has changed me. I would say I was a cold-hearted person for a little bit, you know, until I had my son, and they put into perspective on you. So yeah, I would say that's the story about my daughter.
Nice.
Now we move on to.
So from there, what happened is I told you that I had that experience.
Oh yeah.
With, if you'll pardon me real quick, I'm going to set this up. I'm going to hit the restroom real quick, and I'm going to come right back. But I want to set this up. So
I can
So remember, I told you I had that experience with Christ in the not in the waiting room, but back in the hospital room.
Yeah.
And I had this experience, and I was like, I told her, I made this promise. Oh yeah, I made a promise to Christ. I was like, if you save my wife and my daughter, I will dedicate my life to you.
See, he didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
He never expressed that until one day. I think we were talking.
Yeah.
One day, you can go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
One day,
but I want to get into basically how we got into Protestantism from there.
Okay,
how we started attending church.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wait, what were?
We were talking about how I had that experience with Christ.
Okay, yeah. So he never told me about that experience before, for a while, I would say. Because I've had my own experience too when I was pregnant, but I didn't, you know, I think when you really have an experience like that, I think sometimes I don't know if you like to keep it to yourself, but you realize it's an important thing. But, one day we were talking, and I think we were talking about our experiences, you know, going through the time with my daughter. And he opened up and he said, I don't think I ever told you, but when you got pulled away, I tried to go to the waiting room, and couldn't handle the waiting room, so I went back in the room by myself, and I felt this presence, you know, because I was almost falling into despair, and I was almost begging, you know, for you to live, and to tell, I was telling, you know, God or whoever, you know, God, please, like, I will never, what were you saying, Ben? What did you say?
I was saying just to Christ.
Yeah, what were you saying when you were in the waiting room?
Well, I
Or not in the
basically,
waiting room, in the room.
yeah, in the hospital room, I basically said, if please just, this is like, I don't know, you know, this is my last resort, basically, and I just don't know what else to do. Please save, I gotta close the fridge. Please save my wife and my child, and I will dedicate my life to you.
Okay,
it was
yeah,
pretty
that's
simple.
what he said. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And he told me that, and I was kind of like, did you really say that? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, we're not going to church.
Yeah.
Like, if you said that,
Yeah.
and he made, like, he held, like, he's, like, I'm here.
Held up his side of the bargain.
He held up
right?
his side of the bargain. Like,
I gotta do my
like,
part.
I kind of was like, I was like, well, then we need to go to church.
Right.
That was my immediate. I was like, well, then, what do we? I was like, well, then we have to go to church.
And I was like, yeah, we should do that.
But then I said, I was like, but if we go to church, because from my past,
right,
from before, I've had issues, and so I said, if we go to church, I'm gonna be the one to choose the church.
Choose the church, yeah.
Yeah. I want to make sure I feel comfortable there, because I don't want to fall into what I fell into before with the Catholics, and not only that, but with the molestation and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to make sure that that the authorities, if needed to step in. We're going to handle the situation if something, because I was told I need to keep it quiet.
Right.
So I kept it quiet, and I just want I wanted to go to a church to feel comfortable, so that in case something like that ever happens, I would feel the need to talk to somebody and then feel comfortable about it.
Right.
Not be pushed away.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to choose a church. So I did my research, and we were living in El Cajon at the time. Mm-hmm. And did my research, and I found this.
It was Christmas.
Was it Baptist?
It was
Baptist
Christmas.
church?
Was it the Baptist?
I think
church?
it was Baptist.
Oh wait, we started going to where we first started going.
I'm not going to say the church, but we started going to a Baptist church in Santee.
Yeah. We
went to Baptist church because I reeled him in, because they were doing movies at the time, and they were doing Home Alone. And I was and the Christmas
Vacation.
The Christmas Vacation one.
They were doing a sermon tied into Home Alone and Christmas Vacation, where they showed clips from Christmas Vacation and Home Alone during a church service, which is crazy. But I was like so into it at the time, because I was a movie buff, and I still am. And I was like, okay, I'll go to that.
He's like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
I was like, that sounds great.
I was like, this sounds great. I was like, this sounds great. Like this makes me feel like I can go in and be like myself, like whatever, right?
And it was fun.
It was fun. I liked it. And mind you, I'm still friends with him on Facebook, my pastor. But let me go into details with that. So we went to this church, and we fell in love with the church, right? Mm-hmm. We kind of just started going. And then 2020 hit. And when 2020 hit, everything shut down, but our church stayed open because they were very conservative. Yeah. That's the thing that I liked about the church, was I was like, look, if I need anything right now, it's church, especially since the whole world is shut down. Mm-hmm. Like, I need something, right? Besides going to the store 10 times a day, pretending like I need groceries when I really didn't, just to get out of the house. Yeah. Because that's what I was doing. I'm pretty sure there were many of you doing multiple trips a day just to get out of the house. But I needed something, so we continued to go to the church. Luckily, they didn't shut down. Yeah. And I would say we were the only ones, because we didn't believe in that kind of stuff. And you know what stuff I'm talking about. But we were the only ones at the church not wearing masks. And he didn't make me feel uncomfortable about it. Actually, I think he was kind of proud about it.
Yeah.
I think he was kind of like, hey, like there. And then once we just kept coming without masks, there was other people who started saying, oh, you know what, these people, what, like this is okay. So I started noticing this movement, and then everybody, like mostly everybody, stopped wearing masks.
And nobody had masks.
It was crazy.
Within a couple weeks.
But I could tell, like our
they were looking at us a little weird.
They were looking at us a little weird,
like,
like do you guys care about people?
All right.
Are you guys Christian?
No one said that to us. No
but
we got a couple side eyes.
You
right.
get the looks. You know what they're thinking when they look at you with no mask, and you're walking in, everybody wearing a mask, and they're looking at you like,
right.
What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
Having faith.
Yeah. So, but then we started noticing that people started taking off their masks.
Right.
So then our pastor started doing these outdoor nighttime, because the whole world was shut down.
Oh yeah.
He was doing these nighttime sermons.
I think they were starting to try to like fine people.
Yeah,
money
so
or something if you're doing.
I don't know if it was for money. It was. For
I don't know.
I still liked. Honestly, I liked that church because it was small.
I liked it.
And not only it was small enough church, and not only that, but it was very conservative, and that's where I started being like, this is cool. Like this is like. I want to be more conservative now, because before I was more, I would say I was liberal before with the whole for sure. Like abortion thing. But then after my daughter, I felt like I needed, and then everybody was for abortion, and I was like, I need to get away from that. Yeah. So I became more conservative, and I like that. So we start going to these outdoor events where they're kind of like these sermons outdoor, and he has food trucks and he has ice cream trucks, and we're all just hanging out. And it was a cool thing for COVID, because it was one of the only things that was open. There was a lot of families, because they would focus on the families and bringing, the food trucks and ice creams and snow cones and just making more of a family dynamic. And that's why I like the church that we're at now, is because it's very family orientated. But we actually won a car through them because there was a raffle during one of those outside events, and our car was breaking down. Like, it was literally like on its last leg. I think it was overheating every like it was really bad. Like, it was bad. There was clicking noises on the wheels. Like, it was really bad. Like, it was on its last wheel. And we didn't have another car. And so what happened was, he had this lady, I think one of his family members or one of his friends of the family, this lady passed away from cancer. And they donated the car, or he bought the car from her at a low price. And then he was going to donate it to somebody, a family in need. So he had they had a raffle, and they had people sign either people up, so you can either be nominated or you can nominate yourself. Yeah. So we didn't really know many people. I think I would say like 7 nominations, and that was me using like my work email, his work email, like that was like, and then my personal email, and then his personal email. Like it was only like I only like asked like probably like 3 or 4 people to help me with the raffle, and I don't know what happened, but like.
And the more nominations you had, the higher chance you had of winning.
Yeah, because it was a raffle. Yeah. So I'm over there, and I'm thinking to my head, I'm like, this is too good to be true. And I'm like, look, we're really struggling right now. Like, I just had my daughter. We're struggling. Our car is breaking down. Like, for some reason, like, I felt like God was, I don't want to say, but this is my perspective of things. Yeah, now, I'm not saying this isn't
orthodox. This is just an experience she had.
This is an experience that I had. I felt like he was telling me that car was for us. And I just had to, like, try a little bit to get it. Right? I was very discouraged that I had, like, 3 people that I could nominate, that could nominate me. Right. But I did it. And he was kind of like, I was skeptical.
I was super skeptical.
With only 3 people, you're not going to get it. He's like, you're not going to.
I just thought she was getting her hopes up really high, and I was like, man, you're going to like fall into despair again, and like it's just not looking good. I was
like, I'm like, no, this is like, watch. I'm telling you.
She was very.
I even told him, I said, watch. I'm telling you, God laid this here for me. Watch. just watch. And I said, watch what's going to happen. I said, they're going to call somebody. Remember I told you that before it happened? They said, they're going to call somebody. That person's probably not going to be there. Who knows? They're probably going to call like 5 people. I said, but I feel like that car is for us. And you're like, don't say that. Don't say that. You're like, don't say that. Don't give your hopes up. Don't do that.
I was like, you're jinxing it. I was like, what are you doing?
Da-da-da-da. And so then comes the night of the raffle. And we're doing the raffle, and lo and behold, he does it off his phone. He does some like raffle thing off his phone.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
And it happened the way I said it. So the first person that they called, the person wasn't there. Like
they didn't show up.
They didn't show up. They didn't show up. And then when he said the first name and nobody was saying anything, I looked at Mark, and Mark's eyes got like super big. Like he was like, this is weird.
Yeah. Like
he was like, wait a minute, this is weird, because she's saying it like how exactly like it's happening.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, they call my name, and I'm like, oh, that's for us. And it was shocking.
It was in like slow motion for me.
It was so shocking. And we won the car. So we won that car. And then the pastor took me aside. He took me aside into his office. He sat me down, and he's like, you know, I really don't know how you won. I've been playing with this raffle thing all day. Because it's like the spinning thing that on your phone, and it like stops at a name or something. Yeah. He's like, I've been literally playing with this thing all day. And he's like, the same 3 people's names keep popping up. And he's like, and then all of a sudden, come tonight, and your name is the first one that pops up. And I was like, oh. And I was like, yeah. I was like, he's like, how many things did you have? And he's like, because these other people only had over 100. And he's like, I don't think you had many. And I was like, I think I had like 7. And that was me being generous. And he looked at me, he's like, 7 people only nominated you. He's like, there's people here who have more than 100. And those were the names that kept popping up. So God works in mysterious ways.
Yep.
He knew that we needed that car, and he knew that we were struggling in a way that I don't think most people understood the way that we were struggling, because we are strugglers who like to keep quiet. We don't like to let our business out there unless we really have to. So we like to struggle in quiet, and a lot of people don't really know what we go through, but I think, well, God knows. And he was there, and I believe that was a miracle in itself, because we really needed that, and nobody knew how much we needed.
And sometimes God works miracles outside of the church just to bring you even closer to the church, and you know what? It worked, because I mean, he kept leading us from there.
Yeah, so that was our first experience with going back to church, Protestant church or Baptist church. We were at a Baptist church. And then he, like a month or 3 months later, he moved to Texas.
Right.
So that kind of like...
So it kind of fizzled out. We kind of lost our motivation to go there.
I lost my motivation to go because I really liked him.
Me as well.
And we tried going to the other place with the new pastor. And you know, you have to... What do you say? You have to feel the other person. Like you have to, like, if you're gonna go to a church, you need to feel what the priest or the
be resonating with the message that they're preaching.
Then why are you going? Like, you have to find a place where you're comfortable going and where you can resonate, because you're gonna have a really hard time if you can't find that. But so that's what we did. We had a really hard time getting back into church. So I think then we went to that other, right?
Yeah.
So then, one of my old friend, or
I mean, we bounced around to a couple other Protestant churches, but before we like settled down at another church, the one that we settled down at was Heart Rev, a non-denominational Protestant church.
But yeah.
Well, I already said it. It's already out there. No, it's out there. It's okay.
So yeah, we went to Heart Rev, and that was very Protestant. It was like it was almost like a mega church. It felt like a mega church, like a big. Like we were in a big...
And I liked it when we first started.
I loved it.
I really liked the main pastor there.
But I think the problem with that is it makes it easy to still sin. And not only that, but if you're still sinning too, you're not improving your life.
Right.
So it made it really easy for us to still do things that were
not Christian.
not
so
Christian,
I was still engaging
but be okay
in yoga.
with it because you're already saved, so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, there's a separation of faith and works being preached there too, and it carries out into the spirit.
Well, I've always had a problem with the whole grace over works, or what is it? What do they like to say?
Faith alone, basically.
Yeah, faith alone, because of the way I grew up, and it's like I had to struggle a lot, and it's just, it doesn't make sense. So when you start hearing things, and when I go to church, I'm trying to improve myself. Like, I want to hear something that's going to improve myself. I want to hear something that's going to make me better. That's why we're all going to church, right? Is to make yourself better. But unfortunately, I felt like at the Protestant church, it was still allowing me to go out, to go drinking, to smoke weed, to...
And I was doing yoga, and I was in New Age too, and I felt...
To just be running, just to kind of be like, okay, this is okay, but we're going to church for an hour on Sundays, so we're okay. Right. You know, but then also the whole rock band concert type thing, like it's very emotional driven, and I remember crying in church, but I remember thinking to myself, like, I've never been a crier.
Yeah. And
it was very emotionally driven.
Emotionally manipulative.
And I didn't like crying all the time because I was never a crier. And I'm like, why? And then people would be like, well, that's just you letting go of certain things or whatever like that. And I'm like, well...
Or is it the music's actually like made specifically to bring about these kind of emotions?
Yeah.
That whole setting.
Like, it's the music that came... And I love the music. Don't get me wrong.
No, I still do
like
too.
The music. I still like the music, but do I listen to it all the time? I'll listen to like one song every once in a while. I think.
Yeah, it's different. If you come into Orthodox chants, it's like a whole different thing. Honestly, it's just a whole different thing. Yeah. But it was hard at the first breaking away from that. Yeah, it was really hard at first. Really hard.
But if you're really trying to work on yourself, it's good to go to Orthodoxy because it's really going to open up your eyes to all of the sins and all your imperfections, and it helps you work through it in the proper ways.
Do you want to talk about the Wamkish? Do you want to brush over that? Like do a short summary of that? Or do you want to go into it in detail?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys are excited to hear about that.
Her side of the Wamkish. Go as much into detail as you want to go.
Mark's been saying this Wamkish story for a long time.
Well, let's hear her side of the story too. Yeah, she has a different, not a totally different side, but it's her own perspective of that whole situation and that her whole experience of it, which is it's in line with mine, but it's unique to her experience. So I think it's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. So before we get into this, let me tell you, he was really into this yoga stuff. He was really
like 10 years almost.
Into like yoga. He was into Kundalini yoga. He was into shamanism, psychedelics,
Celtic druidry,
herbalism. He was really into all that stuff.
Mugwort, astral projection, lucid dreaming.
He could talk to me for hours.
I was all about it.
Mind you, he already talks to me for hours about Orthodoxy. Nowadays. But before that, it was all about,
I was obsessed with the New Age and all these... I was making all these connections, these synchronicities.
I would come home and he'd be wearing a shaman like mask,
with it was like a headband thing with like
in a yoga position.
Have like little strings that fall down over your eyes.
Me, I wasn't so into that stuff. No, so I was.
She wasn't about it at all. She's like, "You're going crazy."
I'm like, what is this?
But she didn't really tell me that. But she looked at me like that.
Well, I always told myself I don't like yoga. Because I tried it when I was like in middle school. And then a little bit in high school, and it always grossed me out. Like, the like, the breathing stuff kind of grossed me out.
Right, yeah.
And not only that, but, like, the men that were in there.
Didn't look like manly men, right?
Not only that, but then they would fart.
Oh, wow.
And then I had this one yoga teacher.
That's so weird.
I had this one yoga teacher
explain. They're all like very open about it,
too. Why people fart in yoga.
They got a little too much into that, huh?
They were like, now the muscles relax, and you might hear somebody pass gas.
Oh,
and I was literally like...
They were like encouraging farting, huh?
And then I hear people farting.
Oh, God.
And so I think that kind of... I think
Oh, man.
after that, I was like, yeah, I don't know about this.
Well, that's like some hippie. You went to some hippie dippy out. Like they're just having a
It was
fart
at the
fest.
YMCA. Dude.
They're having a fart fest at the YMCA with a bunch of old folks, probably a bunch of old crusty farts. Lord have mercy.
Dude.
Okay.
So yeah, that was when I was like 15. After that, I was I'm not doing yoga. So then he'd be like, yeah, I'm getting into yoga. And I'm like, yeah, that's stupid. I'm like, yeah, you're not getting. And then he would try to convince me, be like, yeah, you just, it's gonna align your chakras. And
I was way into the chakras.
Dude,
I was speaking in Sanskrit. I knew all the chakras in Sanskrit. The Ajna chakra.
Dude, I'm just like, and then he started talking about some like down there chakra, and I'm like,
Muladhara chakra.
Dude, I was all right. Once you start talking about the down there chakras,
well, that's one of the chakras. That's where the Kundalini serpent gotta crawl up in, dude.
No.
I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on there.
So yeah. So I was never into that stuff ever. And I would just watch him.
I was way into it. Well, I had an experience early on that led me deep into it, a Blue Pearl experience, which you can hear about in my testimony. We don't need to talk about that right now.
Yeah, I would come home and watch him do stuff. So I wasn't really a New Ager, I wouldn't say.
No.
I was never a New Ager.
Not really.
I would consider myself just
someone who was open to mushrooms at one point. But because of me. Because I talked her into it.
But you talked me into that. I wasn't into it at first.
Yeah,
I didn't
she
want to
wasn't
do
really
it.
about it.
I didn't want to do it at first.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything.
I wanted to go to that Wamkish ceremony really bad.
Yeah. So, okay.
So let's talk about, should we talk about the veterans walking? The situation
yeah, so
with the
we were actually getting married at the time.
Yes.
We were engaged and we were planning our wedding, and we were planning in the process of planning our wedding because we were already planning the wedding.
Right.
And we started going on me. Well, he dragged me along.
She didn't want to go yet.
Because I didn't want to go. He dragged me along to these veteran walk and talk sorry, I don't know if I could say that.
Yeah, it's already out there. We're saying, everybody's putting on blast now, dude. Okay.
These walk and talks, it was like this 8-mile walk where we walked and people were taking like
microdosing or doing more. There was like it was like a mixture of mushrooms with San Pedro. It was a San Pedro and mushroom mixture. I took a couple pills.
I didn't do anything.
And it was, you microdosing and walking and smoking doobies that people were passing around.
I was smoking weed. So so that happened, and we went on this walk, and he started getting he became friends with these walk and talk veteran group. And so we went on a couple walks with them. I think we went on 3 walks.
Yeah, something like that.
3 walks. I think it was 3 walks. And when that happened, he was online or something, and he came to me and he was like, "Hey, so like how he's kind of wanted to always do ayahuasca and
go to like Peru and do that
and all that. So he's always talked about that.
Yeah.
Well, before.
When I was in the New Age.
Yeah, when he was in New Age. He wanted to do that. That was like his next step.
That was my dream.
That was his next step, I think, from putting the shaman hat on. I think he was like, I'm on my way to go
meet the shamans.
To go meet the shamans. He thought he's like, I'm going to learn from the shamans. I'm going to become a shaman.
Freaking Irish Celtic wizard.
Yeah, and then you were looking into Druidry and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You were into everything.
I was just trying to tap into where everything came from.
Yeah,
I was looking for truth. I was truth seeking.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
So, what was I talking about?
We're going to the Wamkish.
Oh, yeah. So he comes to me and he's like, hey, there's this group. There's this guy who does spiritual healing ceremonies on native land. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to go.
Would you be willing to go
willing to go with me? Now, I am the type of person that, although I don't agree or necessarily, I don't agree with certain things, I'm not going to let you, I guess, suffer on your own. I'm not going to let you, like, do something on your own, especially if you asked me to join you.
She knew I really wanted to
do this, too. I knew he really wanted to do it. I knew he was going to do it anyways.
I was going by myself or with her. I was either going by myself or with her.
I knew you were going to do it anyways. I knew from back in the day, like, those scary mushroom VHS tapes the high schools, like, Like, that came into my head, and I was like, oh no. I was like, well, if you're going to take a high dose ceremony, I need to go with you at least.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I need to watch over things because you're a little aggressive and I'm a little aggressive. We already know this. Mm-hmm. So I had to think about it. I think I was a no first. I think I was a straight up no.
And then we started taking mushrooms.
No, and then
at one point, right?
No. And then you told me that the spiritual healing ceremony was going to land on the anniversary of my mother's death.
Oh yeah, that's when the date was. And
that's when things started opening up. So he told me, he's like, hey,
synchronicities started happening.
The healing ceremony is supposed to happen on the anniversary of your mom's death.
Yeah.
So what do I have problems with is my mom in the past. Mm-hmm. Spiritual healing ceremony will help me fix the issues that I have with my mom, and I want to try to get over that.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a sign, and that's what I thought. I was like, you know what? This is a sign for me to go.
Yeah. And
so then I kind of started opening up again, and then that's when I started taking the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get used to... I wanted to see how they feel around without anybody around, basically. Because I'm the type of person, like, I like to feel in control.
Yeah.
Without people looking at me. So, like... I wanted to try to get used to it.
We wanted to build up our tolerance too, and just kind of familiarize ourselves with it more before we went into that. So we started doing like 2, 3, leading up to like 5 gram ceremonies. I think I did a 5 gram one by myself overnight. I talked about that in my testimony. But basically,
Yeah, I had. I took one. He gave me a little bit. I don't know how much, and it didn't.
Or a gram,
hit
maybe
me.
Just a gram and a half or something.
It didn't hit me until I hit 5.
Yeah.
And that night that I hit 5 was the last night that we were
doing that before we went to
the Wamkish. And I said I need a bigger dose because I don't see anything. I'm not
feeling much of anything.
There's nothing happening. So I think I have a pretty high tolerance to begin with, but I finally did the 5 gram ceremony. And
no, the 5 grams just by yourself, right?
Oh, just by myself, yeah. It was just by myself in the room. And when that happened, we have a Virgin Mary that was in front of where I was sitting at, and I started staring at it, and I could have swore that she was speaking to me.
Which was probably a demonic
experience. No, it was demonic.
Yeah,
she was telling me the basically like the ceremony was going to be okay tomorrow, and then I was going to be fine, and not to have fear, not to be scared to go on to the ceremony, and that she was going to be right there with me. Yeah, so... The next day, I think, or the day after that, we go up to the mountains and we start, we meet up with the people, the Indians and another group of people.
The veterans people.
And there was about 15, I think there was like 13 or 14 males, and I was the only female.
Maybe even
and I didn't know...
Yeah.
I didn't know. I think that had something to play into it, but I'll talk about that.
Only female.
I'll talk about that a little bit further on. But yeah, so we met them. We did this whole like what is it, ceremony?
Yeah.
Like this whole like pre-ceremony.
Well, we went around the land and picked up like sage, and he was telling us about the land, and we were gathering sage to toss into the fire to speak our intentions before the ceremony. Yeah,
so we were gathering sage, and then it started becoming, I think, around. Then we ate. After eating, they told us to rest a little bit for like an hour and a half before the ceremony started. Yeah. So we were me and Mark, we had our own room in the house. Because all the other men, because there was only men.
We were the only other couple, really, the only couple there.
They were outside in tents, so we were the only couple that was. I think because we were a couple, and I was a female. That they had a separate room for us, so we were resting in there until it started, and then I think at 9 o'clock around it started. It started around 9 when it got dark. And we were taking pictures before the ceremony started.
Yeah.
And when you look at the pictures now, it's interesting because there's like these weird shadowy like
orb
figure things kind of like above us, which is really weird. But anyways, So we take those pictures before it starts, and then the ceremony starts. We go around. He's passing mushrooms out to everybody. He tells us to hold our hands out like this, and he literally filled both of our hands up with mushrooms.
Like totally filled. Yeah, 15 grams.
So I had smaller mushrooms, but I honestly think that was more like, I don't know.
It made it worse.
I think it made it worse, honestly. He was giving me all the small ones, I think, because I was like a female or whatever, and Mark all the big ones. But I was getting a lot of small ones. Yeah, and so then when he started, he starts walking us through it, and he's like, get all your, what you believe out of your head, or something like that.
Yeah, any preconceived notions of what you may believe or what you think God to be.
Any religion, any God.
Try to get that
out of your head. And then didn't we wipe ashes on our face and our heart?
Possibly. Oh, Lord have mercy. I think we did. Yeah.
That's the part I kind of vaguely remember now.
I vaguely remember that. I didn't even remember that till you just said that. That's crazy. Yeah, that's a part. See, that's why I like doing this, because parts that I don't remember.
Then he like has us. Was it a cross that he made us do?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know.
I don't want to say it was a cross, but we had to rub ash.
That was like part of the ceremony.
On our forehead and then on our heart.
Yeah.
And he was saying to get rid of all like everything, like anything
to clear you out or something.
Like clear you out. And yeah. So gosh. Okay. So yeah, it starts and
you take the 15 grams.
I think, yeah. And it takes a little bit of time to kick in. And then he asks, specifically me, I think one of the people, and I don't think it was the guy, but somebody asked me, what am I seeing, right?
Yeah.
He was asking me, what am I seeing? And at that time, I started crying, laughing. Like, I started to laugh, crying. And I was seeing this blue and white light, like in geometric, like figures. Like when my eyes were closed, they were like, it was this like bright blue and white light. I don't know how to explain it. And they were just kind of like moving around. And so I kind of explained that. And then after that, I had this weird feeling. And it started with that. After that, I started saying, I was like, wait a minute. I opened my eyes and I stopped like crying hysterically. Laughing hysterically. And I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, there's some darkness trying to come into the light. And then I think they were a little confused. And I was like, you see? And I was like, I like showed with my hands.
Cut the circle. We're seeing a circle.
Yeah,
I
cut it in
the middle
half.
of the circle with her hand.
And I was like right in between the half. And I said, look, this is the good side and this is the bad side. I said the bad side is trying to come into the good side. It's trying to take over. I think people thought that I was
talking about that whole half of the circle.
I think people thought that I was saying that, calling them all bad, which I wasn't. Yeah. I was seeing things, dark shadows coming and overshadowing that light that I was seeing.
Yeah.
And then after that, I looked up at the sky, and it was completely pitch black.
Pitch black, yeah.
It was completely pitch black. Like, there was a lot of stars when we started. There was, like, a ridiculous amount of stars, because we're up in the mountains, there's not a lot of light, and there was a ridiculous amount of stars.
Yeah.
All of a sudden...
We were looking at stars all night before that.
Pitch black.
Yeah, they
and
disappeared.
I looked at him,
disappeared.
and I kind of nudged him. I'm like, is it just me, or all the stars just disappeared? And he looked up, and he would, like, agreed with me. He's like, they're gone. Like, we were in pitch black. The stars disappeared. I don't know what that was. I don't know. I can't explain that.
It felt like there was a dark shadow covering us. Like we were in darkness enveloped around us.
Yeah.
Blocking the light.
So I think at that point, I started kind of like freaking out. Not freaking out, but I kind of started...
something was bad. That was like a bad omen. Yeah. A bad sign of bad things to come.
It gave me like an icky feeling.
Yep.
Like that.
Something's off here.
like almost like it makes your heart hurt, kind of like it, ugh.
Tighten up.
Yeah, tighten up. And when I felt that, I started realizing, I was like, okay, don't freak out right now because you're on 15 grams.
Yeah.
And you don't want to freak out. So I listened to what he said, and in the beginning of the ceremony, he says, if you start like getting freaked out or whatever, stare at the fire. So I was staring at the fire, and I was staring at it for a while, and then I saw an upside down alligator head. Which kind of now in my eyes looks like, and I never knew this icon.
And we'll show some art of that icon too, so you can see it better.
But yeah, it looked like an alligator head, which kind of looks like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it was open, so it was trying to eat something. Well, it wasn't eating anything, but it was like it just had its mouth open. And I noticed that, and I was then, when that happened, I started looking at the people around me. And there was this guy who was not sitting next to me, but he was the one right across from us. He started growling and turning in. He started being like on all fours,
just
like all fours,
over.
like growling like a demon, like almost like a demon. Like it was scary, and that's when I started freaking out.
Yep. I was noticing the same thing.
I was starting to think, whoa.
What did we put in ourselves?
What's he doing? Is he okay? Oh, is that going to happen to me? Like, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, you're seeing that? And I had to, like, make sure with him. Like, I'm
she
like,
checked with me.
I'm like, are you seeing this?
She's like, is this happening?
Is this happening?
That's not a hallucination. That's real.
Is this real? And he was up there, like, if you could have seen him, he looked like the guy from Lord of the Rings.
Like the
little gremlin dude from Lord of the Rings.
The ring.
And he was growling like him,
yeah.
and he started shaking his head all like violently at one point. Mm-hmm. And that was the first sign. And then I was like, okay, started looking around me, and I just saw a whole bunch of demons around me. And that was my first glimpse. I feel like that's when I first started, I felt like we were in a portal. I felt like when I was saying that whole bad and good, like I felt like the portal, there was a portal that was opened up, and the bad came into that portal, and we were surrounded by
demons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people want to look at us and think that we're acting like these people weren't really acting like demons, and they were growling, they were hunched over,
manifesting,
they were
literal demons,
sweating profusely, like ridiculous, like
the whole
vomiting.
Mannerisms changed, their voice changed.
Voices changed.
Yeah.
It was very
real.
Intense and very real. And at that point, there was a image that I saw when there was some men sitting, and they were. So at this point, I remember that the guy who was in charge of the ceremony says, start throwing the sage in the fire, and start saying the names that you guys are having issues with. I remember him saying that, and when he said that, I remember there was a group of men that were throwing, and they like turned into demons where they started like praising like the fire. It was weird. They were like doing this with the leaves and like praising the fire instead of like throwing the stuff in the fire. It was weird.
Yeah.
It was really weird. And so that happened. And I think everybody just started turning into like their own little
versions of demonic manifestations.
Yeah, it was. And then even me and even him.
Yeah.
Like, what happened after that?
So the ceremony went on for a while.
It went on for a while. So we were all experiencing this.
The chief got up at one point. He was having trouble. He was
having trouble because
he could feel some energy.
Because people were starting to like
demonically manifest. And
people were starting to like purge.
Puke,
And I think there was multiple people like starting to like purge, and he was getting kind of like not irritated. Well, he was.
You could feel a dark energy.
But he's like, you know what? We need to end this. And
he wrapped it up short, out of nowhere, very abrupt.
He ended it really quickly. He started taking down the tarp from the thing that we were in.
Mm-hmm.
He like started ripping it down, and then he started spraying water.
Yeah.
At one point,
it was spraying
us, but it was spraying us.
But it was like going over our shoulder, and then he started like somebody, it was either him or someone with him, started spraying us with water. But we were still focused on the fire.
Yeah, I was
tapped
so
into the
focused on the
ceremony,
fire.
And it ended so abruptly. We're still in the zone. Yeah, we're on 15 grams. So, and it's still kicking in.
So at that point, we noticed they're like, "It's over. It's done. You guys need to go to bed."
And they made a weird comment like, "We're just peeing on you," and laughed about it. And I was like, "Well, that's a weird comment to make it like a sacred ceremony." I was like, "Huh." That just caught me off guard a little bit. I heard that 100%. They said that
when he said when he ended it, he's telling everybody, he's saying to leave.
Yeah,
he's saying everybody needs to go to bed. And so we're like, okay. So we're trying to. At this point, I'm out of it. At this point,
we're totally out of it.
I am trying to comprehend what's going on, but there's just so much going on. I can't comprehend what's going on.
Yeah.
So I know we have to make it into the house to make it to our bed. So at least I know that.
Yeah.
Okay. When we get there, there's so much commotion going on. Like he had a hard time getting me in the house.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I peed my pants.
Yeah.
And I was embarrassed by it.
And I couldn't
explain it.
Yeah.
And I think I was just embarrassed because I peed my pants.
She's around a bunch of men.
And we were a bunch of
strangers.
And he was like, "Come on, you have to go." And he wasn't comprehending. And we started bickering a little bit at that point. And then we decided to go into the room.
Yeah.
So at this point, me and his tensions are pretty high. Like, because he's over here trying to get me in the house, and I don't want to come in the house. I think because I peed my pants, and I don't think I can comprehend what's going on.
Yeah.
So he's trying to get me in the house. We make it into the house, and there's this guy who's sober, but he's like following us around to make sure, I guess, we're okay, which is okay. But when we're in the room together, I feel a little uncomfortable. Like I can't.
It was super uncomfortable.
He shut the door and he's in the room just watching us.
So kind of standing over us, and we're supposed to lay on the bed and go to bed, and he's like standing in the corner of the room, just kind of watching over us. I don't really feel comfortable, and I think when I don't feel comfortable, I start getting aggressive naturally. Yeah.
Like I am the person, like I will fight you. Like he knows this. Like I'm aggressive. I will fight you if I don't feel comfortable. And that's how I was before Orthodoxy. Like I'm pretty aggressive. And I started getting agitated. And Mark was telling me, just like I think you were trying to go along with it, like just lay down, just lay down. Mm-hmm. It's okay, just lay down, I'm here. Yeah. And I was like, no, da-da-da-da. And I think we started getting into it because he wanted me to lay down. I don't want to lay down, I'm trying to fight. Da-da-da. At one point, I remember grabbing the behind of your neck, grabbing it, because I want to go outside. And you want me to lay down, but I'm trying to push you to go outside. And I think that's when we start kind of like scuffling a little bit. And I think people started thinking that he was like being aggressive like with me, but I was the one that was being aggressive, and he's trying to control me because when I get aggressive, it's hard to control me. And I think he knows that. Like, especially when I'm on 15 grams. I've never been on 15 grams, but I can only imagine someone on 15 grams probably has ridiculous strength too. Yeah. And I was doing things that were not right. I didn't want to lay down. I didn't want to.
And then you started having a vision.
Oh yeah, and then you were telling me to lay down, and then I went into this vision mode where I had this really strong vision of being on a mountain and seeing a huge cross, which I know, well, yeah, a huge cross. And they're having this huge light that I can barely even see anything but light. And it was like blinding me. And then... Similar
to the Transfiguration.
Yeah, like I felt like now that I'm in Orthodoxy, because before Orthodoxy I didn't know
what the Transfiguration was.
But when I had that vision and then I heard about the Transfiguration, that's kind of exactly my vision. And I was like at the bottom of the hill, and there was this just like light that I couldn't comprehend. and I started spewing out. What was
I think you said
Malachi is Jesus.
Like you were seeing that you were Mary,
well,
I was
I'm
Joseph,
Mary,
and
Mark's
that Malachi
Joseph,
was Jesus.
And Malachi is Jesus, and we don't have to worry about anything anymore.
And I started freaking out.
And you start freaking out. You're like,
oh,
no, we need to get out of here. I'm like, no, but I'm having this vision.
Yeah.
And I was like laying there, and I'm like, Malachi's, and I'm screaming.
Yeah, she starts screaming,
like,
Malachi's Jesus.
I'm screaming at the
and
top
I'm
of my
like,
lungs.
she's going
Malachi's
crazy.
Jesus.
I thought she was losing her mind.
You don't understand. I'm like, Malachi's Jesus. Yeah. I'm Mary, and you're Joseph. I was like, this is...
Everything's going to be good.
I was like, everything's fine now. Everything's fine. And he's like, no, everything's not fine. Like, we need to get you out of here now. Yeah. And I think that's when things started
really
getting
took a turn for
very...
me. I knew for sure that we were in something so demonic. I already knew before, but I was like, we could lose like our minds and souls right now. And I felt this spirit of sacrifice in the air. I felt like the ceremony wasn't done yet, and that the culmination of the ceremony was still about to come, and that we were going to be sacrificed.
Well, and then after that,
felt that,
I collapsed.
Yeah, you collapsed.
After I had that vision,
she collapses in my arms. I
collapsed in his arms, and I couldn't move. So he was dragging me out.
So I drag her outside.
He's dragging me out, but I think people thought that you were dragging me out.
They don't know anything that happened before that.
But I was like, dude, I passed.
They didn't see that.
I could not move. I literally fell into his arms, and he had to drag me out of the house.
I was like just trying to leave at this point.
But it looks kind of aggressive because I'm heavy.
Terrible.
Not only one, but I'm heavy. I'm not like...
She's limp at this point.
And I'm limp. I'm like dead weight. Like I'm a dead person. Yeah. And I'm just laying there, and he's over there. We gotta get out of here. And then he goes... So then we make it outside.
And then it hits me, the mushrooms.
And then the mushrooms hit him, and then I snap out of it. Which is weird because we hit outside. And then all of a sudden, people, because what happens, you're dragging me outside. I remember somebody saying, Mark. I
think it freaked me out, like all the voices coming at me.
Yeah,
me in a
they were like,
state.
they were calling him, Mark, like, calm down. Don't drag her like that. Don't drag her like that. But, like, they don't understand, like...
What's happening.
They don't understand what's happening. Yeah. So, they, of course, they think he's being, like, aggressive.
And they're on mushrooms, too. And they're all on mushrooms, too.
I'm the one that's being aggressive, and I just collapsed after being aggressive, and now he's just trying to drag me out of the house.
There's one guy in the room that saw this, but he can't communicate all that that's just happening. He don't even know what he's looking at.
Yeah. So, he drags me out.
Yeah.
And, then you become mute.
I went mute,
Which that... Like,
probably pretty scary to see.
That when you became mute, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, okay, he'll talk to me though. Like he doesn't have to talk to. I was like, just talk. I was trying to tell him.
I just went mute.
I was like, just talk to me.
It was like
and I was trying to tell him. Just talk to me. You don't have to talk to anybody. And he was like, you didn't talk. Wasn't talking, and everybody was like...
Well, plus I was...
and then everybody was trying to talk to him.
Yeah.
But he wasn't talking. Everybody was calling him. Everybody saying, Mark, what's going on? Mark, like, just take a deep breath. Mark, da, da, da.
I didn't know what that was.
And then it got to the point where, like, you collapse. What is it? You kneel on the floor.
Yeah.
You kneel on the floor, just kind of like, I give up type situation, but I'm still going to be mute.
Yeah.
And you were, like, just sitting there. And that guy who was in the first...
Well, I thought I was going to be sacrificed. I thought I was presenting myself to be sacrificed at this point. That's what I was doing.
So then the guy that I saw, he comes back and he's coming closer to us again. The guy who I first saw as a demon, he's coming closer to us while you're mute. And so then other people start noticing that, push him away. And then it just becomes this huge thing around Mark where everybody's just trying to make you talk and things just go south from there where it just got crazy. I don't know. It got real crazy. I mean, got mute and then I don't know how you started talking again. You started talking and then
I started yelling at the sky, at the moon.
You were yelling at the moon in the sky. I don't really remember what you were saying. I
think I was saying, oh, you want me to talk? Okay, I'll talk. And I was yelling and I was saying just very kind of sporadic, random, demonic things.
Yeah.
Very aggressive.
He was very aggressive. And then he howled at the moon. And then he jumped in a fire.
And I leapt into the fire.
And me seeing that from... Oh! Before then, though, let me talk about before then. When they're trying to, like, get Mark to talk while he's kneeling down, they bring a bed outside.
Right.
And then they try to have me separate from Mark And I think that caused a lot of like extra tension because
you don't separate a man from his wife.
They were trying to separate me
and
they
have
were
her lay down on a bed.
They were saying, "You come lay down on the bed. You come in and lay down on the bed." And then when they were telling me to lay down, I immediately thought I was going to be sacrificed. That feeling went into my head too. I was like, "Am they going to rape?" Like I thought I was going to get raped, or I thought like I immediately thought a very bad, icky feeling. Like, why do they want me to lay down on a bed? Yeah. It just made me feel very icky. And then things got out of hand. So they separated me. That's how things got really bad. They separated me. And they're telling me this. And they're over here trying to talk to Mark. And then Mark starts standing up. And I think that's what happened. And then you start getting out. You want me to talk? You want me to talk? And then you start howling at the moon. And then I'm back here looking. And then you jump in the fire. And you just lay there.
Swan dived in the fire and I laid there.
And I am in total shock. I look at that and I'm like, oh my goodness. What happened? What is going on? And the fact that he was just laying there, like, scared me even more. I'm like, he's on fire. He's on fire. But I was so, you're on 15 grams. I didn't know how to respond to you being in the fire, so I think I just froze. And there was another guy who came and picked you up, which was the guy who was in the same room with us. Came and picked you up. You brushed yourself off. I looked at you when you brushed yourself off, and you looked like you woke up from whatever you were having. It was weird. Like you were like, wait a minute, where am I? You were like brushing yourself off. You saw that you were on fire because he was on fire. There was little parts of him that were on fire when he got up, and he was brushing himself off. And you had your shirt on at the time. And you were brushing, you're like, what's going on? And then you took your shirt off. Yeah. So, and then things got bad after that too. So, because
somebody came to try to calm me down.
Calm him down, but telling him to breathe.
Telling me how to breathe.
Really weird.
One of the other gentlemen who was trying to help with the ceremony came over out of nowhere, and he was trying to tell me how to breathe. He was being a little aggressive. And he got up in my face, and he's like, oh, you're better now, huh? And he like kind of like bucked up on me. And he like gave me, he was like, you're gonna like be quiet now, right? Like little punk, basically. Like he didn't say that, but he gave me that kind of feeling. And he kind of moved up on me in like a threatening tone within my personal space. And I just kind of reacted and hit him. I don't really remember making the decision to hit him, but I know I hit him because I hit him. And I saw him fall to the ground. And then I got tackled from the side from the same gentleman that was in the room that pulled me out of the fire before. He tackles me from the side to try to subdue me because I hit someone. And he tackles me to the ground. I don't know if more people jumped on me. I couldn't see. You could see, but I couldn't see. And I pushed myself back up off the ground. I don't know if it was him or more people. It was a lot of commotion at this point. I'm pretty sure there was a couple other people on me. And yeah, and go ahead. How did you see it? So, how did you see that situation when I got tackled and everything? Because I didn't see it. I couldn't see it.
I know. When it just got really aggressive with all men around. I think it became more of it became like this dominance behavior, almost like animalistic. Yeah. Like I want to say like the men turned into animals by the way that they were acting because it was very territorial and I feel like it was just run like they were just complete animals, all these people. It was not a spiritual healing ceremony at all. It was like a cluster of craziness ceremony, and I do not recommend it for anybody. No.
Right. And then from there, very shortly after that, I found Orthodoxy through Father Josiah Trenum and some other sources, Church of Eternal Logos. I saw a specific... I'd already known about Orthodoxy a little bit before that, but it kind of came... It was like almost like God kind of dropped it on my lap. A way to kind of like a light to guide me out of this darkness that I had gotten us into. And that was just a couple of days after the Wamkish. I saw this interview with David Patrick Harry talking to your mate Tom, and he had an ayahuasca experience in Peru where he blacked out and he got violent and he had to get pinned down, and he was with his fiance at the time, and it was very scary for both of them, and like just totally, he called out to Christ, and that was the only thing that saved him in that moment. and that affected me, and it just really reminded me exactly of what we went through there in the Wamkish. So that really catapulted me kind of into digging deeper into Orthodoxy and church history. And do you want to talk about how we came to the Orthodox Church from there, or do you want to leave that for another?
You.
Well, it was kind of me, but it was like, but you that ended up calling the place and talking to Father Deacon Anthony.
Yeah.
Because you were calling around looking for which church we were going to attend.
Yeah, but you wanted me to go for your birthday.
Right. Oh yeah, that's how it happened. I actually forgot that. So I guess I used my birthday as like a leverage. I used my birthday present. I asked for my birthday present that year to attend. All I wanted was to attend an Orthodox church. So, do you want to talk about what that looked like? Your first visit to St. Anthony's? Or?
I didn't like it.
Right. She didn't like it at first. Then she ended up...
I thought it was a cult.
Yeah. So how did you work through that? Or how did you get to where you're at now, where you don't think it's a cult? Like from that, from coming in at the beginning and feeling like it was a cult that was driven by men and.
Yeah. Well, we just came from the Wamkish ceremony,
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be involved in anything anymore.
Yeah, and we were still attending that Protestant church, the non-denominational.
I didn't want to. I just didn't want to get involved in anything anymore because I was just tired of it.
Yeah.
I was honestly tired of all these things that were happening. And like 2 days later, he's telling me about Orthodoxy after coming back from like a 15-gram ceremony, and I just think.
Here he goes again.
Yeah, and
right.
I wasn't for it at all. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Not going to be a part of it. You know, and then you kind of like forced me to like go with you for your birthday.
Right.
So I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And, well, of course I wanted control, so I called. Because I said, I'm going to make sure I feel comfortable. But of course I called, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the way he answered. I didn't like the way it sounded very men driven, like a men driven or like manly driven. And I'm very much not. I'm still very independent. Like I have a problem with that. So, especially being hurt so many times in the past with things, especially with men, I was very against it and I didn't like it. And the guy that spoke on the phone had a very stern voice.
Very short and to the point.
Yeah, very short and to the point.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, I don't know about this. But I went anyways, and went the first time, didn't like it. I just didn't like the whole kissing of the icons, didn't like the whole kissing the hands priest. I saw all that, and I didn't like it. I was like, what are you getting me into now? So that you can just, I don't know, be like
some manly man or something.
Manly man now. You want to like control things. Like that's
Right.
not going to happen. Like it's not who I grew up with. You're not going to be running things. This is not how things work in my eyes. So yeah. And then went the second time, I think, because me deep down inside, I don't ever give things just one chance. That's just me in general. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it at least 3 times. And then I'll go from there. So I'm very adamant about that. I've always been that type of person, and I just didn't want to
judge it off that one visit.
Yeah. So I went another time, and the second time we spoke to this like elder guy, and that's when things started clicking a little bit for me. He told me his like life story, and
that old monk,
something about like his family member got his arm chopped off in the desert from like some enemy or whatever, and then my name Mayda was his sister's name. And he talked to me and he had this like sparkle in his eyes, and he was this like elder. I've never seen him after church. That's the only time I've seen him.
Yeah.
And when the way he talked to me, he had this like, he was like maybe in his hundreds. I don't know.
Dude, yeah, I never saw him before or after that.
He was like
day.
in his hundreds. Like, I want to say he was really.
He was so old.
He was really like.
He was an old monk.
He was an old like monk. I think, I don't know. He was dressed in all black.
He almost seemed like a schema monk.
And he sat down with us, and he had like an hour and a half conversation with us. And,
yeah.
He really opened up my eyes. That monk really opened up my eyes. And when I heard his story, and I heard what he'd been through as a child, and how kind of the Orthodox faith was being attacked by the evil one, and he's witnessed it, and it just kind of, it brought things into perspective rather than the Catholic Church, because like I said, I grew up Catholic. I've never heard a story like that in Catholic Church. Like, I never heard a story of martyrs. I've never heard any stories of like people struggling in the Catholic Church. Like, really, like when you, like as a child, I don't know if he has, but they don't really focus on like the martyrs and like things like that and the stories. And so I was like, well, maybe there's more to this. And then I kind of gave it one more chance, and I kind of started going. I don't really remember when it changed.
I think it was a gradual, slow thing.
I think it was very slow.
Yeah.
Because I just remember not being very about it in the beginning. Yeah. I remember just doing like what he wanted me to do, and I'm just like, ugh.
Why are we doing
this? Like, really? Like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is ridiculous. You just came back from the Wamkish, and now you're making me do like this whole thing, and I wasn't. And like I said, I had a problem with authority, and the whole kissing of the priest's hands really affected me more than the icons. Like, the whole kissing of the priest's hands, like, I was thinking, I don't know where this priest's hands has been. I don't know what he's done with his hand.
Right.
That's the first thing, like, I think about. I'm sorry, but growing up as a child, being in situations where men have not treated you properly, you have this certain mindset of men. And that was my mind state. Like, what are you hiding? So, I kind of just gave it a little bit of time. And then I think what kind of did it for me was the lamentation service.
Oh yeah, the lamentations of the Theotokos.
I think that really did it for me.
Around Pascha.
Yeah, and that really did it for me. And then I started realizing that there's tools in Orthodoxy that they give you to help calm you when you're dealing with things like despair or things that you think you can't handle. That's what the Orthodoxy faith is for, because it's all about struggle, and it's about working through that struggle, I think.
Yeah.
And so I love how they give you tools.
Yes.
And I feel like it's made me stronger, and I'm trying not to be aggressive like I have been in the past. So that's a really big challenge for me. But I think I'm working on it. And I think the Orthodox faith has really helped me. That's why I was baptized, or else I wouldn't have done it. I really do believe it's the truth. And when you start going to the Orthodox faith, it's hard because it's a big wake-up call. People are doing things different than the Protestant churches. Like, it's not always fun and games. You're not having a rock band. You're actually struggling. Like, the first couple times you're standing up and you're tired. And your back's hurting and you're not used to it. And you're like, what's, another song. Oh, and another this. Oh, another this. And it's like 2 hours? Really? Like 2 hours? Oh, and then the consecration.
No coffee allowed in there.
No coffee.
You can't drink coffee
in there. You know, like...
No crossing your legs when you sit. You're not supposed to cross your legs when you sit, you know?
Yeah. And then I started looking at like the people around the Orthodox Church, like the families aspect and their dynamic, and I started realizing that they have a really strong dynamic. The Orthodox Church and families has a very strong dynamic in the ways family run things, and I feel like that's a big reason why I changed the faith, because it started making me realize that you do need a hierarchy in a way.
Yeah.
Like you need Christ above everybody. And then it is good to have the husband and then the wife below the husband. Because honestly, like, it's tiring dealing with all the, like, I don't want to be fighting all the time. You know?
Yeah.
That's like your job. I want to be like the little girl and the one damsel in distress.
Right.
You know? Like, I want to get to that point where I get to that. I'm still battling that because I have, like, you know, growing up, it's being independent, and we still have our battles, I think, but we're working on them, both of us. I think I have a real big problem with men in authority, and that's one thing that I'm working on. And working on husband and wife together rather than just always being one-sided. Like I always wanted control. I feel like I always wanted to be in control, but now that I'm realizing like it's not we're not in control. Christ is in control. So,
yeah.
If you look at it from that angle and you just go along with the ride, it's different. Because then the control's off of you and you don't have that stress of feeling like you need to control everything. Like, Christ has got it. Let him take it. You just go along for the ride and try. Struggle a little bit and you'll make it. You know?
Exactly.
But yeah, so.
I think that's it, huh? Do you have
Yeah,
anything
it's
else
just
that you
starting.
want to add as any final thoughts or anything that you feel like you need to add on, or do you think that pretty much wraps it up for your story?
Well, I think there's going to be a more in-depth, more about my childhood.
Yeah, we can
stuff.
go in depth into certain aspects.
Into certain things. So if you do want to hear more things about like how I grew up in my childhood, because I didn't get to get into that, and I know that's a lot of things that a lot of people have asked me personally, like about how I grew up, and I think it's good to go into details, especially if you're thinking about adoption or if you're thinking about, you know, having a family in general, because I feel like we all need to grow in certain ways, and everybody's story can help somebody else, you know,
in some sort of way.
In some sort of way. So yeah, so I think if you have any questions or want to know more about my life or questions about adoption, or the other thing that I want to do too is
I can leave your Instagram and your Instagram in the description below so people can reach out to you on there.
But I'm also going to do probably more in-depth, like documentary style.
Yeah.
Kind of going into my life.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, this is a short version of my life, and it's already been almost
the
3
longest
hours.
Episode of Light of Tabor ever.
So
yeah. And this was the shortened
right
version. Yeah, I'm pretty tired too.
Oh, and then we'll go into like how our lives are now with like, I was hospitalized. So I am dealing with still liver issues.
Yeah, we can give you guys some updates about what that's been looking like moving forward since those scares many years ago we've been having. There's still struggles we're working through currently.
Like, I was just hospitalized in December of December
2023.
2023. Yep. And on disability now because she almost died,
and she had to lose her. You know what I mean? You can't be working when you're almost dying, obviously. So on disability.
So yeah, I am open to questions, comments, concerns. We are also going to be doing a lot of pro-life stuff too. Yeah, I've been more in the background with the Light of Tabor. I don't like to be the center of attention. I don't like to like have my face on camera. I don't like to. This is new for me. Yeah. So excuse me or pardon me if it's long or I'm rambling on too much. But this is like my first time doing it. So, yeah. There's going to be a lot more to come, and I think we're also going to be looking into like my family, my birth family, and I will probably film it along the way. So I'm looking at probably doing that soon. I am pretty ready to start doing that. It's been a long time, and I think it's about that time to see if I could find anything out. And there's lots of resources out now, so it's like just a matter of me doing it. So yeah, I think that's it.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you liked it, go ahead and like the episode. If you want to drop some comments, go ahead and drop some comments below. Any questions you may have, and I'll also leave Mayda, my wife's Instagram, in the description below, so you can reach out to her there if you have any personal questions that you want to reach out about. Maybe you grew up adopted, had a similar upbringing, and maybe you have some insights or questions. Go ahead and throw those to her on Instagram. She'd be more than happy to answer those. So thank you so much again, Mayda, for coming on. It was awesome testimony. I'm looking forward to editing this. It's probably going to be at least a day before I get this up, because it is a 3-hour episode, and I want it to be done right, and I want to do it justice, because there's a lot of really important topics to me here, especially with our family. So thank you so much. God bless everybody, and until next time, take care, guys.
Christina. Martha, waiting for Dad to park the car.
So, Christina, what's happening today? Did you get these new clothes today? Oh, there he is. And here comes the driver.
Got the keys? Okay, we're gonna go inside.
Agni parte